The first breath of clean air I ever took in my life. I was 20 years old and technically inside a video game. Let me explain why that sentence is the least insane thing that happens in this story. I grew up in a city where the air had texture. You could chew it. Rich people lived in mountain villas above the smog line, and people like me lived in concrete towers marinating in pollution soup, collecting lung problems the way other generations collected stamps. Kids in my building were dying of lung cancer before they were old enough to rent a car. That was just Tuesday. That was just Earth in the 2080s. Then the Federation made an announcement. Not a company, not some game studio hyping a launch. The actual world government got on the radio and said, a game called All People Lord launches at 8 tonight. Every adult on the planet must log in, and anyone who refuses gets their benefits suspended and their bank accounts frozen. Frozen bank accounts for not playing a video game. I stood there holding my grocery bag with my nose covered, listening to the strictest announcement in human history, and thought, sure, why not? The helmet was free, my lungs were on a countdown, and my evening plans consisted of reading a federal newspaper alone in a room the size of a closet. The bar for improvement was underground. At 8 sharp, I lay down, put the helmet on, and pressed start. White light, grass, and then I inhaled. I need you to understand what that first breath did to me. 20 years of filtered, recycled, chemically apologetic air, and suddenly my lungs were full of something crisp and green and alive. I almost cried over oxygen, a grown man, emotionally compromised by breathing. That was the moment I decided that whatever this game was, I was never half playing it. The system chimed and welcomed me to the eastern continent. Establish your territory here. I looked around first because I'm not a complete rookie. Flat grassland, a river in the distance, wide and lazy, curled up like a sleeping dragon. Mountains beyond it. Decent neighborhood. I said the magic words, and my glorious new domain rose from the earth. It was a thatched hut. One, singular. A hut with structural opinions and more holes than my life plan. I named it Divine Dragon Village anyway, because if you're going to own a shack, you should at least own it loudly. Then the game asked for my player name, and I went all in. Shu Changfeng, Divine Dragon. Was it modest? No. Was I, a man with one hut, in any position to be naming myself after legendary strategists and mythical beasts? Also no. But you can't be low-key in games. Low-key is how you end up as a footnote in someone else's highlight reel. Then came the notification that decided my entire life. Every player got exactly one hero recruitment. One. A single pull on the gotcha machine of destiny. I hit the button and braced for golden light, heavenly choirs, some kind of production value. Nothing. No light, no choir. Just the door of my sad hut creaking open. And out walked a woman who made my brain perform a full system reboot. White, traditional dress. The kind of face that poets ruin their careers trying to describe. She looked at me looking at her, and her expression said she had already read my entire browser history. My lord, she said, if you try to force me, I cannot stop you. But if you treat me with respect, I will serve you with everything I have. Wait, force? You could, the game allowed. I strangled that thought in its crib, bowed like a civilized human being, and apologized for staring. I'm Shu Changfeng, I said. Welcome to Divine Dragon Village. Both words doing a lot of heavy lifting there. She bowed back. My name is Mei Ling Yun. I'm willing to serve the Lord. The system lost its mind. Congratulations, player Shu Changfeng. You have recruited the only God-tier support character in the entire game. Reward, the 9 transformations of the Divine Dragon, a God-level cultivation method. The only one. In a game every adult on Earth was legally required to play. Billions of pulls on that gotcha machine, one God-tier support in the deck, and she walked out of my broken hut like she'd been waiting there the whole time. I checked her stats with shaking hands. Loyalty, 60. Intimacy, 60. Skill, proficient in all domestic affairs. Special bonus, all territory attributes increased by 100%. 100%. To everything. Forever. And here's the thing I'm actually proud of. 60 loyalty is quitting distance. If I'd been a creep for even 1 minute, the single most valuable character in a game played by the entire human race would have walked out of my life and into legend as somebody else's win. Instead, I said, Ling Yun, I'm appointing you Vice Lord. The territory is yours to run. Her loyalty ticked up 10 points on the spot. Respect, it turns out, is a farming strategy. I went to scout the river and left her a village consisting of 1 hut and 0 people. I came back a few hours later to 82 recruited residents, 10 of them logging, 5 scouting, the rest gathering food, with a housing plan already in motion and a polite apology that she hadn't managed to build homes for everyone yet. She'd been on the job for an afternoon. I'd contributed a walk. By nightfall, we had 170 people. She apologized again. Some of them would have to sleep outside. Ling Yun, I said, you conjured a functioning town out of grass while I looked at a river. You're doing fine. That night, I logged off to do research, which is a fancy way of saying I read the forums in my underwear. And the forums were a disaster movie. Lords digging for wild vegetables themselves until their backs gave out. Lords watching half their residents walk off because there was no food. One guy got attacked by wolves on day 1 and lost half his people. Another guy recruited a hero so dumb he couldn't be left unsupervised near his own furniture. Somebody had already died for real, in the game sense. Turns out if you get your territory raised or get yourself killed as a lord, that's it. No lord respawn. You're demoted to wandering adventurer for the rest of the game. The game every government on Earth was forcing people to play had permadeath for your career. I closed the forum, looked at my ceiling, and thought about the fairy running my village with military precision while I slept. God-tier support. Truly worthy of the name. Day 2. The system dropped 2 messages that should have terrified everyone. First, the game had bound itself to everybody's identity and bank information, unchangeable, and game currency now converted directly to federal money. Second, the continent was getting an official forum. A game that pays real money and cannot be uninstalled from your bank account. Nobody knew who built it. Nobody asked out loud. There were rumors that 50 years ago, during the Big War, something intervened and turned every nuclear weapon on Earth into expensive paperweights, and that the Federation itself was the compromise that followed. Nobody could prove it. Everybody enjoyed the game. Enjoy the game, the system said, like a waiter who's already poisoned the soup. Back in my territory, I decided a lord should contribute something besides vibes, so I grabbed 10 strong men and went hunting. Our arsenal? Wooden sticks. Our target? Wild boars the size of motorcycles. We found one rooting around, 200 pounds of bad attitude. In games, boars are tutorial meat. In real physics, a boar that size ends careers. It charged. I planted my feet, swung my stick with everything I had, and hit it on the head. The boar dropped dead. One hit. The end of my stick exploded into toothpicks. I stood there, staring at the world's most sudden pork delivery, while 10 grown men chanted that their lord was mighty. And I'm thinking, was it? Was that mighty? Or is something deeply weird going on? Because the second boar took all 10 of them swinging together, 2 injuries and 0 progress, until I walked over and ended it with 1 more swing. The suspect was obvious. The 9 transformations of the divine dragon, the god-level method that came free with Ling Yun. I'd cultivated it exactly 1 night, sitting cross-legged like a man pretending to know what meditation is. Apparently 1 night was enough to turn my arms into industrial equipment. Back home, Ling Yun confirmed it. My lord, your method builds the body itself. Also, she added, as gently as possible, you shattered that stick because you have the technique of a farmer beating a rug. Please learn actual staff fundamentals. Noted. Filed. Eventually ignored in the funniest possible way, but we'll get there. She also introduced me to a blacksmith who'd wandered into our territory, a slab of muscle called Elder Wong. He measured my height, watched me lift rocks, and promised me an iron rod by morning. When I thanked him for his hard work, the system chimed. Blacksmith loyalty increased to 100. Fiercely loyal. For life. I said thank you to a tradesman and unlocked eternal allegiance. Meanwhile, on the forums, lords were losing entire villages because they forgot food exists. The skill gap in basic human decency was carrying my whole career. Next morning, armed with my new iron rod, I took 15 men boar hunting and discovered I still couldn't calibrate. First boar. 1 tap, instant pork. I stood over it genuinely embarrassed. Was I too violent? Then the herd showed up, hundreds of wild boars, surrounding us. Apparently we'd been rude to the wrong extended family. Form a circle, I yelled, projecting the confidence of a man who was also terrified, but had a reputation to maintain. They charged. I swept my iron rod like a windshield wiper, and boars went airborne. Something huge bellowed at the back, and out came the boss, a boar with tusks like sabers and the body mass of a small car. It rammed me head on. My arms rang like struck bells. I slid backward, and for one beautiful second we were just two idiots testing physics. Then I pinned its leg, traded it a punch for a face full of pain, and when it flinched back, I swung twice, right side, left side, like ringing a gong. It swayed. It fell. The system congratulated me on killing the boar chieftain and paid me 100 copper coins and a pile of territory reputation. Around me, more than 40 boars were down, and I'd personally accounted for over 30. The men looked at me like I was a natural disaster that happened to be on their side. I dragged the 700-pound chieftain home by myself, which, in hindsight, was pure showing off, and I regret nothing. Everyone ate meat that night. The territory glowed. And I lay there, thinking a dangerous little thought. The forums were full of people starving in this game, and I was already rich in the only currency that mattered. The wolves introduced themselves 3 days later. We were out hunting when a lone wolf stepped out of the brush and stared at us with the calm of an animal that has backup. My scout said the words nobody wants to hear 12 kilometers from home. Where there's one wolf, there's a pack. I ordered a retreat and took the rear guard myself, because that's what the strongest guy does, and also because I'd started enjoying being the strongest guy a little too much. The wolf howled. The bushes answered. Dozens of them hit us at once, and this time it wasn't a product demo. 3 wolves came at me together. I swept them off their feet, and 2 of them got right back up like I'd offered a suggestion instead of a concussion. One lunged past my guard and opened my back through my shirt. The pain was so real I forgot for a second that reality was somewhere else. This game charged full price for mistakes, so I stopped making them. I planted myself between my men and the pack, and I went to work. Swing, step, swing. Somewhere in the middle of it, the system chimed that I'd mastered basic staff technique, which is hilarious because I learned a martial art the way other people learn to swim, by drowning aggressively. The rod got lighter in my hands. The wolves got fewer. By the time the pack broke and ran, more than 30 of them were down, 9 of those mine, and every single one of my men was still breathing. We limped home, and Ling Yun met us at the gate with a face that did something to my chest completely unrelated to the injuries. She saw my shredded back and ordered me to the clinic. I ordered the 3 critical guys treated first. The system chimed twice, her favorability up, her loyalty up. Apparently, refusing medical treatment is romance now. Then a 3rd chime, much louder. Territory upgraded to level 2. And then a 4th, the one that changed everything. A continent-wide announcement telling every player in the East that Shu Changfeng's Divine Dragon Village was the first level 2 territory in the game, and that the trading system was now unlocked. The forum reaction was instant and beautiful. Level 2 needs 500 people, someone wrote. I can't even feed 130. And then the line that would follow me for the rest of my career. This Shu Changfeng must be the system's illegitimate son. I'd like to formally state that I earned everything through hard work, superior management, and a god-tier firearm doing literally all of the management. So, half true. While Ling Yun cleaned my back with medicine that stung like betrayal, I opened the shiny new trading system. It was empty. One lonely level 2 territory listed. Mine. Trading with yourself is just moving your wallet to your other pocket, so I closed it and browsed my new fan mail instead. The forum had moved from awe to marriage proposals in under an hour. I shut it off before my ego needed its own territory. The wolves were still out there, so I did what any reasonable lord does after nearly dying. I scheduled a rematch. Ling Yun commissioned shields and spears overnight, and that's when 2 walk-ins changed my military forever. Liu Yong, a former centurion, and Zhao Hao, another centurion with 1 arm and the stare of a man who has seen everything twice. Ling Yun hired them the way she hired everyone, instantly and correctly. Zhao Hao became my drill instructor. Liu Yong became my field commander. I handed Liu Yong a basic blade manual I'd been saving, and his loyalty hit 100 before the book was fully out of my hands. The rematch was a different genre. 38 of us, shields locked, spears out, me on the outside as bait with legs. 60 wolves came down the slope and broke on that shield wall like water on rock. Liu Yong called targets. Spears punched through gaps. I stopped aiming for heads and started sweeping legs, because a wolf with no working legs is a rug with opinions. When the pack finally fled, the ground held over 100 wolves, which by the game's generous math was 20,000 units of food. 20,000. Overnight, my starving continent problem became my customer base. Because here's what the trading system had turned into by then. Hundreds of territories hitting level 2, and every single one of them posting the same word. Food. 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 Meanwhile, a player named Guo Wei slid into my messages calling me Big Boss, explaining he'd looted a fortune raiding bandits and had 500 hungry mouths and nothing to feed them. I checked with Ling Yun like a responsible adult. We had reserves for days and income every hour. Then I sold Guo Wei a mountain of fruit and meat for 2,500 copper coins. Copper converts to federal money, 1-to-1. I want to be honest about what that number meant to me. In real life, I had about 3,000 a month and lungs with an expiration date. 2,500 from one trade for meat my people hunted while getting stronger doing it. I sat there in my tiny apartment looking at my bank balance, and the game stopped being a game somewhere in that minute. I spent like a man possessed, but only on the right things. That blade manual I'd handed Liu Yang, bought off a player called Soaring Falcon, paid in pork minutes before the giving. Silk cloth, 10 bolts, because I'd noticed Ling Yun owned exactly one dress, and the thought bothered me more than the wolves had. And then the big one. Some player with a waterfront territory listed blueprints for a 500-ton ship plus a dock, price 20,000 units of grain. Everyone on the forum laughed at the price. I had a wolf-shaped grain printer. I bought it before lunch. The forum spent the evening trying to figure out which lunatic had 20,000 grain lying around. I sent the seller a private message asking him to keep it quiet, added him as a contact, and said nothing publicly. A habit was forming. Let them guess. Guessing is free advertising. Oh, and somewhere in all this, a trader named Shuer started messaging me. Cheerful, persistent, self-described great beauty. I ignored her with the discipline of a monk, not because I'm above it, but because I'd already used my one lucky pull on this game, and her name wasn't on it. She did not take being ignored well. Remember her. She turns out to matter. The bonfire is the part I actually keep, though. We'd killed the wolf threat, the territory was fat with meat, and the people threw a party, drums and fire and dancing. I grabbed Ling Yun's hand and pulled her into it before her sense of propriety could file an objection. She danced. She laughed. Her intimacy stat went up, and I pretended I hadn't checked. 3 days into the apocalypse's favorite video game, and I had a town, an army, a ferry, and a fleet on order. Then, real life tapped me on the shoulder to remind me the game wasn't staying in the game. I logged off that night, picked up my water cup, and it exploded in my hand. Just crumbled, like I'd squeezed a cracker. I stared at the pieces. Then I grabbed my arm strength bar, the exercise kind, rated for serious athletes, and pulled. It snapped in half like a breadstick. 20 years of asthma-adjacent city lungs, and I was now snapping steel by accident. The cultivation method was real. Outside the game. Whatever I trained in there, my body kept out here. I sat down on my apartment floor, ran the 9 transformations, and felt heat coil in my stomach like something waking up. The Federation forces everyone into a game. The game pays real money. The game rebuilds real bodies. I didn't have all the pieces yet, but even a discount strategist could see the shape of it. This wasn't entertainment. This was a doorway. And they'd marched the entire human race through it. I made 2 decisions that night. 1, tell absolutely no one. 2, from now on, I treated everything in that world as real. Real people, real deaths, real home. Which, given what the game did next, was the single best decision I ever made. The Wolf King surrendered on a Tuesday, and honestly, it was the most professional job interview I've ever conducted. We'd marched out to finish the pack for good, found them lined up at the foot of the mountains like they'd scheduled the appointment, and had ourselves a proper battle. Liu Yang's formation held like a wall. I'd upgraded my technique from hit the head to break the legs, which sounds crueler but ends fights faster. When the pack was down to a few dozen, the biggest wolf on the field stopped, looked at me, and the system chimed. The Wild Wolf King wants to sign a Guardian Beast contract with you. Accept? I accepted. The continent-wide announcement hit before I'd finished reading it. First Guardian Beast in the game. 10,000 copper, 500 reputation, a random blueprint, and a rank up for the wolf. The forum chat counter hit 999 plus in about a minute, and somewhere in that avalanche, A self-described 18-year-old with long legs offered to demonstrate all sorts of poses. The forum remained undefeated as the worst place on 2 Earths. The Wolf King led me to his den to show me why he'd folded. A mother wolf, 2 cubs. He hadn't surrendered to me, he'd surrendered for them. I crouched down, patted a creature that had tried to eat me the previous week, and told him we were family now. He nodded. He actually nodded. From that day, the northern approach to my territory was patrolled by wolves who worked for free and never called in sick. Then I bought their kid a present. Some player named Ba Dao listed a mystery item, a red fruit glowing like it had a secret, effects unknown, price 5,000 grain. I bought it on pure instinct. Ling Yun took one look and identified it instantly. A vermilion spirit fruit, beast rank up food, usually guarded by spirit beasts that maul entire expeditions. Ba Dao had apparently lost half his roster picking it and had no idea what it was. I fed it to a wolf cub. The system chimed. 2nd king level guardian acquired. You're such a good wife, you even know this, I told Ling Yun, and watched her turn a shade of red not found in nature. Neither of us corrected the sentence. That's how those things start. Meanwhile, real life needed renovation because my strength kept growing and my apartment kept losing. I'd crushed the cup, snapped the exercise bar, and then torn the bathroom door handle off while turning it. A man who cannot safely touch doorknobs needs mountain privacy. So I took my game earnings and rented a room in a villa deep in the hills, $8,000 a month, facing an undeveloped back mountain where I could hit rocks in peace. The villa came with a surprise: housemates. 4 rooms, and the other tenants were 3 young women who all played All People Lord, led by a girl named Lin Mei Lin, who greeted me with a full recitation of house rules. No noise. No visiting each other's rooms. No bringing strangers. I agreed to everything with the enthusiasm of a man who exclusively wanted to play games and punch boulders, and she looked genuinely offended that I wasn't more interesting. Give it time, Mei Lin. Give it time. Back in the game, the Wolf King's patrols found something better than wolves, a bandit stronghold in the hills. 90 men, a gate, guards. To most players, an impossible raid. To me, a piggy bank with a door. The plan was clean. Wolves caused a commotion out front. The stronghold sent men to investigate. We deleted the men. Then Liu Yong's shield team rammed the gate off its hinges, and we poured in with wolves flanking through the chaos, and the whole thing came apart like wet paper. Their biggest guy charged me with a gleaming broadsword. I met it with my iron rod and full power. His sword shattered, and he went to sleep mid-swing. The announcement told the continent someone had wiped a level 1 stronghold when most players still needed a committee meeting to fight one bandit. The loot told me why bandits were worth the trouble. 30,000 grain, over 15,000 copper, 73 silver, 100 weapons with actual attribute bonuses, and a horse ranch blueprint. Call it 20,000 federal in one afternoon. My savings hit 30,000, and my old life officially cost less than my new hobby. And then level 3 arrived, and the game took its mask off a little. We hit 3,000 residents, first on the continent again, and the rewards came in a parade. 1 epic level hero, 1,000 silver, an advanced weapon blueprint called the Zoo crossbow, which, yes, matched my name, and no, I don't think it was a coincidence. The system has a sense of humor, and it's all at my expense. And a warhorse. The epic hero introduced himself by kneeling, a mountain of a man in armor, carrying a warhammer, voice like a landslide. Your subordinate ironclad greets the lord and the lady. The lady. He meant Ling Yun, who was standing next to me and turned pink on schedule. I explained she was the vice lord. Ironclad looked at me, looked at her, and visibly failed to understand the difference between a vice lord and a wife. Big man, big hammer. Brain optional. I loved him immediately. The warhorse was pure white, arrogant as unpaid nobility, and refused to let Ironclad touch it, which instantly doubled my affection for both of them. It nuzzled me like we'd met in a past life. I named it Silvermane, because branding. And then the system, having just handed me all these toys, showed me the bill. Your territory will face its trial in 3 days. Choose difficulty, easy, hard, or hell. Easy meant some damage. Hard meant possible devastation. Hell meant possible annihilation, loss of lord status forever, and double rewards. Except I didn't get to choose. Because I'd hit level 3 first, the system auto-assigned me a region level trial. Translation: hell difficulty, no refunds, thanks for playing. The forum ran betting pools on which difficulty I'd pick. Someone wrote that anyone choosing hell was an idiot. Correct. And the system had chosen it for me. 3 days of preparation. Zhao Hao drilled soldiers around the clock. The blacksmith shop spat out shields. Ling Yun organized the entire territory into a war machine without raising her voice once. And I spent my time getting beaten up by Ironclad on purpose, because I still couldn't control my growing strength, and the only safe training dummy I owned was an epic-level meathead with lightning powers. Every time his thunder numbed my hands, the 9 transformations burned it out. Every session I hit harder. By day 3, he'd stopped calling me weak and started watching me the way you watch weather. Level 3 also unlocked something quietly enormous. I could now see the rank and attributes of every resident in my territory. The game graded people, it turned out, on a ladder that ran from B at the bottom through A, S, double S, triple S, then Epic, Legend, and Myth at the summit. Ironclad sat at Epic. Ling Yun, when I peaked, read Legend, which explained a great deal and flattered my gacha luck all over again. So I ran a census with a recruiter's eyes, and the results reorganized my whole military. Out of thousands of residents, 106 S ranks, 36 double S, and 9 triple S. 9 people with the raw talent to someday stand near the top of the ladder, and they'd been hauling firewood and gutting fish because nobody could see the numbers over their heads. Not anymore. Every S rank and above went to Zhao Hao's training ground that afternoon. The fish would have to gut themselves. Elites got the good manuals, the good equipment, the good food. It sounds cold, rationing futures like that, but the wolves had already taught me the price of sending brave, average men against monsters. From now on, I'd send monsters. And speaking of things Level 3 revealed, with the aptitude system open, Ling Yun walked the refugee lines personally every morning, and our intake of high-ranked talent quietly became the best on the continent. Was it luck? Was it her legend rank eye for people? Was it the god-tier support aura pulling quality to the territory like a magnet? I asked her once. She smiled and reassigned me to reviewing the fishery reports. I know a state secret when I'm handed one. The silk deserves its scene too. Those 10 bolts I'd bought her arrived at the tailor's, and a few evenings later, Ling Yun walked out of the back room in the finished dress, and the entire administrative center forgot what it was doing. I'd seen her every day for weeks. I'd fought a boar the size of a car without blinking. I stood there like a scarecrow with my mouth open and said the only 2 words my brain had left. So beautiful. She turned red from her collar to her hairline and fled to inspect a granary that did not need inspecting. The next day, she wore the dress again. We're both very subtle people. It's one of our strengths. Trial morning. Ling Yun stood beside me in embroidered silk while I wore armor, and I told her, believe me, I will protect you and this territory. Her expression didn't move. Her loyalty and favorability both jumped 10 points. She's not hard to read, she's just dignified about it. The enemy came over the horizon, 100 cavalry, 400 infantry, led by a swaggering commander who announced his men would take everything and everyone. He looked at my 360 defenders behind our knee-high stone wall the way you look at a lunch menu. Then Ironclad's hammer took his horse out from under him mid-sentence. The commander was epic level, the trial's fang, the thing that was supposed to end me. What the trial designers hadn't budgeted for was that I already owned an epic hero of my own, plus a lord with god-level cultivation and 3 days of hammer-sparring rage to spend. Ironclad locked him up front. I hammered his flanks with everything the 9 transformations had. His arms went numb from lightning, his guard slipped, and my rod came down on his neck with a full swing behind it. He didn't get up. Their morale died with him. We swept the field, took 100 surrenders, and the system announced to the entire continent that Xu Changfeng had passed a hell-level trial. The rewards read like a lottery malfunction. 3 great master artisans, an epic cultivation method, an epic skill book, 100 gold coins, which converted to 1 million federal. I went from broke to millionaire in one battle announcement, sitting on the same couch where, a month earlier, I'd been budgeting instant noodles. And I discovered information itself was a currency, because everyone wanted to know what hell difficulty actually looked like, and I was the only living answer. A lord named Akane Sato made me the offer that started it. She listed a bizarre material called black jade cypress, wood the color of ink and the hardness of steel. And when I tried to buy it, she countered, "No sale, trade me the truth about the hell trial instead." Her problem, I learned later, was magnificent. She owned an entire mountain of the stuff and couldn't process a single log, her artisans breaking saws and shattering axes against timber that laughed at tools. A mountain of priceless material, useless as furniture. I named my price at 10,000 units and told her the truth, mostly. The enemy leader is epic level and will slaughter an unprepared territory. I survived because I had tools that weakened him. All facts. The tool was named Ironclad and had a hammer, but she didn't need the brand name. She read my warning, quietly downgraded her own hell difficulty ambitions, and shipped me a forest. Later, when my great masters cracked the processing problem, a soaking method that softened the wood just long enough to cut, I offered to mill her stock into planks for a 30% cut, and we became the continent's only vertically integrated super timber cartel. Every warship I sailed for the rest of the war was built from the mountain she couldn't use. The same trick worked on everyone else. Shure bought the Hell Trial Truth for a quest scroll. A few other careful traders paid in materials. Then I stopped selling, because by tomorrow, half the buyers would resell it and the price would die. Information is fish. Move it fresh and never be the last one holding it. And one more item, listed almost casually at the end. Nua's Divine Ring. Divine rank equipment, unique, spatial storage a kilometer on each side, grows with its owner, binds by blood, cannot be dropped or traded. I bound it, obviously. And on the forum, 100 lords who'd watched me survive hell difficulty concluded that hell couldn't be that bad and queued up to pick it. I told exactly one person the truth. Shure, the persistent trader, messaged asking for the inside scoop, and I sent her 4 words. Do not choose hell. No explanation. Everyone else got silence. The ones who didn't listen found out why the rewards were doubled. The great masters deserve their own minute, because managing them was my first real diplomacy test. 3 legends walked into my rickety workshop, a blacksmith, a carpenter, and a formation master, and immediately began roasting my facilities like food critics in a burning restaurant. Too crude, broken tools, no decent materials. So I reached into my new divine ring and dropped 10,000 units of Akane Sato's ink black super timber in front of them. 3 grown masters went silent mid-complaint. Then they started fighting each other over who got to work with it. The blacksmith wanted to forge it. The carpenter wanted to build ships. The formation master wanted to carve arrays into it. I told them all yes, dropped another 10,000 units, and walked out the most popular man in the building. Great masters are just cats. Expensive, brilliant cats. You don't train them. You bribe them with the good stuff and take credit for their happiness. They named the place Divine Workshop. Within a week, they'd handed me 2 rods of treated black jade, weighted, anti-slip, carved with strengthening formations, as a thank you gift. That evening, the territory threw a victory feast, and the system chimed that my people's morale had boosted all production 10%. I danced with Ling Yun again. The intimacy stat went up again. I checked again. I contain multitudes, and most of them are checking that stat. The divine ring, meanwhile, nearly outed me at the breakfast table. I logged off the morning after binding it, wandered downstairs in the villa, and 3 housemates in face masks looked up from their fruit plates in perfect unison. Hey, said Maylin, you're wearing a ring. You have a girlfriend? I froze. I looked at my left hand. There it sat on my ring finger in the real world. Nua's Divine Ring, a mythical artifact from inside a video game, currently being appraised by 3 bored young women as jewelry. Nice design, said the second girl. Antique style, right? Antique style. Ma'am, this antique predates your civilization and contains a warehouse district. I produced a noise that could be interpreted as agreement, walked out the door at a pace just under fleeing, crossed the back mountain, hid in a bush like a wanted criminal, and confirmed what my hammering heart already knew. I could reach inside it. Out here. 2 epic manuals, my rods, 5 million copper, all of it, sitting in a ring on a polluted planet where I officially earned 3,000 a month. Divine rank items crossed over, which meant the game and reality weren't neighbors. They were the same building, and somebody had just handed me the service elevator. I sat in that bush for a long time, updating my worldview. Then I stocked the ring with food, clothes, tents, and tools, like a man packing a lifeboat, and told no one, and went back inside for breakfast as a person who now carried a small nation's assets on one finger. The girls had moved on to discussing whether Shu Chen Chang Feng would sell his territory for 30 million. I ate my fruit and had no opinion. The river taught me my territory's biggest secret, and it took a pirate turf war to do it. We were exploring downstream with 300 men when we heard two armies killing each other by the water. Pirates on ships, water bandits on shore, both flying variations of the skull and crossbones dress code, having a very loud disagreement about whose water this was. I did the math out loud. 2 enemies, 1 battlefield, and me holding the timing. We waited until both sides had ground each other down to bleeding remnants, then charged in and collected the whole pot. Ironclad deleted both leaders in 3 swings total. The survivors surrendered to the obvious. The real prize was paper, a nautical chart, and 1 interrogation later, a map of my entire world. My territory sat in a sealed pocket of the continent, mountains on 3 sides, and to the east, past a giant lake, the open sea. I'd thought I was a landlocked farmer. I was actually sitting on a private harbor with a mountain fortress wrapped around it. Whoever placed my starting hut either loved me or was setting up a very long joke. The captured water bandits also mentioned, helpfully, that their hidden shore base held years of accumulated loot with almost nobody guarding it. So we marched through the night and relieved them of 5.4 million copper, 3,000 silver, 20 gold, 30 basic cultivation manuals, and 50 skill books. The system congratulated me on cracking a level 2 water fortress. The forum congratulated me on being, once again, the system's illegitimate son. A professional at issuing announcements, someone wrote. I'd have been offended if it wasn't accurate. Money changed shape for me that week. I handed the entire war chest to Ling Yun and told her to put the territory on salaries, because a town that pays its people outgrows a town that feeds them. Then I made my own allowance back in 1 trading session, because the world had discovered my weapons had attribute bonuses and my granary had no bottom. Which is when Gale Guild came shopping, and they sent the invitation through a broker I should have studied harder. A trader called Shade Stairs Gloom listed a rare material, stardust sand, a forging additive that boosted crafting success rates, and when I inquired, his price was strange. Free. 1 condition. Add a certain player as a friend, someone who wanted to discuss buying my territory. Free things have the most expensive strings, but the string was just a contact request, so I took the sand, filed the broker under useful and slippery, and accepted the friend request. Which is how I met Grim Gale, president of Gale Guild, the loudest of the big player guilds, and a charming avalanche of confidence. He'd already opened at 30 million federal for my territory on the forum. The crowd bid it up to 50 on his behalf. In private, he offered 80. 80 million. For context, I'd been alive on 3,000 a month. I said no in 1 sentence and watched him pivot instantly to his real target, the 2 epic-level books from my hell trial. And that's when I understood what was actually happening. Somebody out there already knew what I knew, that cultivation methods of epic rank and above worked on real bodies in the real world. The rich weren't buying game assets, they were buying new spines. I told him I'd already learned both books. Too late. He signed off politely, the way you do with someone whose address you intend to learn. Then I crossed the river with 500 men, and the game charged me tuition. They came out of nowhere. 500 mounted bandits on open grassland, and we were infantry with our scouts too close in. The circle formation that shredded wolves met charging war horses, and war horses won the argument. Shield bearers went down under hooves, gaps opened. Men I'd trained, men whose names I knew, died in the time it takes to shout an order. Something in me snapped clean. I stopped commanding and started hunting, sweeping horse legs out with the rod, dragging riders down, wading forward through everything they had. They cut me more times than I counted. I didn't count. Ironclad threw his hammer clean across the battle and turned their leader into a memory, and the rest of them still fought to the last man, and by the time the field went quiet, more than 100 of mine were dead and 200 wounded, out of 500. This is the part where I'm supposed to make a joke, and I don't have one. We carried every one of our people home. I had the artisans build coffins and headstones, and we buried them at the foot of the northern mountains where the wolves patrol, so they'd never be unguarded again. Standing over those graves, I said the quiet thing out loud. I know people die in war. I want fewer of them to be mine. Ling Yun took my hands, and for once I wasn't thinking about any stat. Develop the territory, I told her. Give them the best equipment and the best training, and I'll do the bleeding up front. Her loyalty hit 100 that night. The system chimed something about refugee rates doubling. I'd have traded the bonus to have the 100 back. Then I went back across that river and took the rest of it. The bandits' surviving grooms surrendered without a fight, and behind their camp stretched exactly what I'd paid all that blood to find. Open grassland running 100 miles to the mountains, dotted with tens of thousands of wild horses. A natural horse ranch, the foundation of the cavalry I'd sworn to build over fresh graves. Silvermane celebrated by immediately seducing several mares. The groom asked me, very respectfully, to please leave my magnificent stallion for breeding purposes. My warhorse became a professional stud before I'd had a single date. There's a lesson in there, and I refused to learn it. Meanwhile, in the villa, my other life was developing subplots. The 3 housemates ran a weekly intelligence exchange in the first-floor lobby, and they let me in on the condition that I contributed. This was, without exaggeration, the best deal on either continent, because these 3 were not casuals. Zhou Jingyi, soft-spoken and precise, knew things about big guilds she had no business knowing. Fang Yue tracked Gale Guild movements like a broker tracks stock, and Mei Lin had detailed opinions about a certain top player. I know some things about Xu Changfeng, she announced one evening, while Xu Changfeng sat across the table eating fruit. I traded with him twice. He bought silk once. Either it was for a girlfriend, or he wears it himself. I chewed very slowly and said nothing, which is the hardest thing I have ever done, including the hell trial. For my membership dues, I gave them one true thing, that a mid-rank cultivation method had cured my asthma in real life. 3 sets of eyes went very still. That information was worth more than any loot I owned, and I spent it deliberately, because a rumor with my face on it was cheaper than the world finding out the rest. And the rest kept getting bigger. Because when I logged off that night and checked the mirror, the skinny kid with the bad lungs was gone. Taller, denser, different. The game wasn't just paying my rent anymore. It was rebuilding me from the inside out, and I still didn't know who was holding the blueprints. My navy started as a fishing operation and became a war crime in about 2 weeks. The shipwrights finished our first Black Jade Cyprus warship, 800 tons of wood harder than iron, and Ling Yun handed me a gift before the maiden campaign, a white silk handkerchief she'd embroidered herself, with a seasickness-warding formation drawn by the Great Master. The ships already had anti-seasickness formations burned into the decks. She made me one anyway. I put it in my breast pocket and did not explain to anyone why I was smiling for the next hour. 3 days of naval drills on the Great Lake, which I'd named Divine Dragon Lake, because at this point the branding department was fully out of control. Then we sailed for the coast, following the captured charts to a pirate cove. The pirates were resting up from their turf war, ships parked, guards napping. Then 3 warships came around the headland in line abreast, with ballistae the size of telephone poles, and their afternoon plans changed. Our bolts went through watchtowers, through walls, through, on one memorable occasion, a pirate and the building behind him. Ironclad threw his hammer onto the beach, followed it personally, and started using one pirate as a weapon against the other pirates, which I'm fairly sure violates several conventions that hadn't been invented yet. Their leader and I had an actual duel, and he was good, properly trained, technique for days. But technique needs functioning hands, and Ironclad's lightning had already cooked his grip, and my basic staff swings arrived like falling scaffolding. 100 exchanges in, his arms quit. I didn't let him retreat, didn't let him command, just kept the pressure on until the opening came. 1 strike. Done. We wiped a level 2 pirate crew off the map, and I stood there in the smoke doing accounting. About 100 of my men down, 600,000 copper in loot, which for that price was insulting. The math of war was teaching me its one honest lesson. Fighting for money is a bad business unless you pick the right enemies. So the universe, hearing this, sent me the wrong enemy with a great offer. Gale Guild had spent weeks on a chained epic quest, invested billions, and hit a wall at the final stage. An epic-level beast at peak rank, a 100-person raid cap, and no firepower to finish it. Fail the final stage, and every coin of the chain burned with it. So Grim Gale swallowed his pride and started shopping for mercenaries, and the Villa Intelligence Club informed me his management had spent 2 days arguing about whether inviting Xu Changfeng was worth whatever Xu Changfeng would demand. Their instincts were excellent. He opened at 3 million federal, win or lose. I didn't reply. He came back hours later offering the money plus 30 basic manuals, with the pained generosity of a man donating his own teeth. I didn't reply. Being ignored does something chemical to guild presidents. Finally, he cracked and asked me to just name terms, and I named them. First pick of whatever the beast drops. If it drops nothing, I take the corpse. Also, I bring my own hero. He called me greedy in 3 different ways, went silent for half a day, and then agreed, because desperate men always agree, and because Shuer, who'd been narrating the drama to me in real time, summed up his position perfectly. Boss, they can't afford to fail. Squeeze them. I do enjoy a market where even the gossip is on my side. I had a leather mask made because I'd be meeting other players face to face for the first time, and my face was the one thing I hadn't put on the market. Then Ironclad and I ported into the mission space with 98 strangers. The beast was a dragon, an actual azure dragon, 2-clawed, long as a runway, with a roar that made my skin try to leave my body. It opened the fight by swatting the vanguard into the afterlife and breathing a line of dragon fire through Grim Gale's Elite 50, deleting 20 of them in one exhale. Their defensive talismans held it back about as well as birthday cards. Ironclad met it head-on and held, hammer against tail, lightning against scale, and I worked beside him, blocking sweeps that made my bones ring, burning the numbness out with the 9 transformations after every hit. When the dragon rose into the air and dropped its Dragon Might aura, half the raid froze mid-scream at 50% combat power. My technique shrugged the fear off like weather. There are moments you feel very good about your loot history. That was one. The dragon's ultimate left it weakened, textbook boss behavior, and Ironclad called it, cover me. He charged his hammer until the air crackled and threw. The impact put the dragon on the ground with its skull ringing. I sprinted in and went to work on its head with a treated black jade rod, and I want you to appreciate my training regimen here, because months of smashing boulders on a back mountain turned out to be the exact skill set for smashing the world's largest lizard. Dozens of full power swings. It stopped moving. And that's when Grim Gale made the worst decision of his career. Ironclad was slumped, drained from his ultimate, weaponless, and Grim Gale looked at my exhausted epic hero, did some greedy arithmetic about drop rights, and ordered his surviving 20 to kill him. Kill the hero, kill the witness, keep the loot. He even said it out loud. Don't blame me, blame your own arrogance. I was too far away. So I did 2 things at once. I turned on the game's recording function, and I threw my rod across the battlefield to my weaponless friend. Here's what Grim Gale forgot in his excitement. Ironclad was drained, yes. Drained, for an epic hero who goes toe-to-toe with dragons, still meant he was the strongest thing on that field with a pulse. He caught my rod out of the air, said something contemptuous about ants, and turned into a spinning catastrophe. 20 betrayers went flying like kites with cut strings, Grim Gale among them, airborne long enough to fully reconsider his life. Then it was just me, my kneeling, exhausted friend, and one twitching dragon. I finished the job the same way I'd started it, one swing at a time, until the system called it. Azure Dragon defeated. Reward, 1 dragon corpse. And because the quest technically completed, Grim Gale, freshly dead, got the completion announcement credited to his name. He got a line of text. I got everything else. And everything else was absurd. The dragon burst into a rain of gold coins, 20 million federal worth, which I picked up piece by piece like the world's most profitable gardening. Under the pile sat a mask, a real one. True false mask, made from dragon hide, divine rank. Wear it and become, fully and undetectably, a different person. Face, identity, everything. I stood in that empty arena holding a second life in my hands, and some instinct told me to save it, not spend it. File that away. It becomes the whole story later. I loaded the entire dragon corpse into my divine ring, where time doesn't pass and meat doesn't spoil, because I am a man of vision, and also because dragon steak sounded incredible. Then I went home and bought a 20 million luxury gaming pod with the dragon's pocket change, full life support, no more logging off to eat. The machine cost more than every apartment I'd ever lived in combined. It paid for itself the first week. Grim Gale, back from his 1-day death penalty, handled our disagreement with grace and maturity, and by that I mean he put a bounty on me. 5 million for my location, 20 million for my death or my territory's destruction. His guild flooded the forum with posts claiming I'd betrayed the raid to steal the rewards, which took real creative confidence given what my recording showed. I didn't release the video. I posted 3 words, "I'm fine, thanks," deleted him from my contacts, and went quiet. People mistake quiet for weakness. Quiet is just an ambush with patience. My message box, meanwhile, turned into a one-woman news channel. Boss, the Gale Guild put a bounty on you. Boss, 5 million just for your location. Boss, hide well. Grim Gale says he'll slaughter you. Shuer sent updates faster than the forum posted them, out of what I chose to interpret as journalistic instinct, and she'd have called protecting her investment. I replied once, thanked her, and went back to ignoring the market value of my own head, because geography was on my side. To reach my territory, you'd need to cross 1,000 miles of mountains or come by sea into the mouth of my crossbows. 20 million wasn't a bounty, it was a suggestion box. The Villa Intelligence Network paid dividends that week too, in the most awkward way possible. Late one night, mid-cultivation, my upgraded hearing caught the housemates talking through the wall. Mei Lin was Liu Li Guild, promoted specifically because she was believed to be close with Xu Changfeng. Yingfan was Shadow Chaser Guild, and her assignment, stated in her soft, polite voice, was tracking down Xu Changfeng's location for Gale Guild's bounty. I lay there in the dark, the most wanted man on the continent, sharing a kitchen with 2 of the people paid to find me, and did the only reasonable thing. I made a mental note to buy better curtains, and went to sleep. The next quest scroll I ran ended with me adopting a giant talking worm, and it was somehow the most emotionally healthy relationship in this story. The scroll came from Shuer, an epic mission called Ice Moon Silkworm Silk, 100-person cap. Fresh off the dragon, I took my best 100 and poured it in expecting silk. What we got was a tiger the size of a battle tank, epic level, guarding a mulberry grove like it had a mortgage on it. The fight was a grinder. Arrows bounced off its hide, even armor-piercing ones. My full power swings registered as light massage. Ironclad went 100 rounds with it, hammer against paw, both of them burning their ultimates, and when its tail caught me mid-block, I flew 30 meters and landed like delivered furniture. I got up anyway, because soldiers watch, and a lord who stays down teaches his people to stay down. We won it the ugly way. Concentrated fire on wounds, every skill in the roster, my rod on the same joint over and over until something gave. 16 of my men didn't stand back up. War keeps its prices firm. Then, past the grove, a small voice said, "Please don't kill me." Lying in the grass was a silkworm 1 meter long, yellow-brown, projecting its voice directly into my head and looking up at me with the guilt-inducing eyes of a creature that has never once paid rent. "Please don't kill me," she said. "I'm very useful. My silk is very useful." The tiger, it emerged, had been her bodyguard, which meant my 100 elites had just fought and bled to orphan a caterpillar. A legendary rank caterpillar. I checked twice. 1 step below divine, the pinnacle of the entire power ladder, and it negotiated for its life in the voice of a sleepy toddler, then immediately began issuing rider demands. "Bring my food. Bring my favorite mulberry trees. I don't eat anything else. Also, there's spare silk in my nest. You can have it as a thank you gift." I asked what I should call her, offered 2 options, and she rejected the first on the grounds that she was obviously a girl, so obviously Qing-er. I had been style-corrected by a worm. Negotiations concluded. Home she came, where she took 1 look at Ling Yun, declared her a beautiful lady, and glued herself to her leg. Excellent taste. 0 survival instincts. Ling Yun arranged a whole future for her, a mountain in the north planted with her precious yellow mulberries, the wolf pack assigned as her new guardians, a legendary being's estate staffed by apex predators, all for a creature whose only skills were spinning thread and emotional blackmail. She fit into my family perfectly. The tiger fight also settled a personnel decision I'd been sitting on. 2 of my soldiers had carried that battle beyond their rank, and I called them in afterward and handed each a full epic rank set, method and skill both, the kind of books guild presidents mortgaged headquarters for. Wei Han, a quiet man whose talent for archery bordered on eerie, got a legendary marksman's arts. Jiang Wu, fiery and quick-witted, got the blazing blade set from my hell trial. Their hands shook so hard I worried about paper cuts. Then both went to their knees and swore to follow me to the death, and I told them to stop being dramatic and go get strong, which in my territory is the standard liturgy. My first 2 generals. The game was about to make sure I needed them. Qing-er also, and I need this on the record, turned out to be a matchmaker. She commandeered Ling Yun's bed as her nest, tore down the gauze curtain between our beds as construction material, and rolled the sleeping arrangements of the administrative center into chaos. I woke up one morning holding Ling Yun, both of us wide awake and pretending not to be, while a smug worm complained that her nest still wasn't comfortable enough. Neither of us filed a complaint. The worm stayed. Business was compounding too, because my second sea campaign turned into the most profitable treasure hunt in naval history, and it hinged, I swear this is true, on a man's bladder. We were 500 nautical miles up the coast when the lookout called sails, a pirate fleet, 9 ships, closing on us with professional confidence. They had numbers in their heads about what fleets could do. Their numbers were out of date. My 16 Black Jade warships turned broadside and opened with ballistae that outranged everything they owned, and by the time the distance closed, half their decks were splinters and attitude. Then came the part my navy had drilled for, 10-man boarding cells, every man a cultivator, hitting their planks in disciplined waves. Attack skill, rotate back, shields forward, advance, deck by deck, ship by ship. Their leader tried to turn it around personally and met Ironclad at the rail, which went the way all Ironclad meetings go, airborne, then aquatic. We fished him out of the sea afterward, unconscious but breathing, along with everyone else who jumped, because a prisoner is an asset and a drowned man is just litter. Their base surrendered even easier. We sailed in behind their own captured ships, flags flying, and the maintenance crews and dock workers had laid down their tools before they understood whose boots were on the pier. First level 3 pirate kill on the continent, announced to everyone. The forum did its usual thing, 1/3 panic, 1/3 worship, 1/3 people announcing their age and flexibility. Then the accountants took over, and the numbers stopped making sense. The vault held over 300 intermediate cultivation manuals, a mass production line for elite soldiers. The warehouses held crates upon crates of a strange volcanic ore labeled flamestone, packed for regular shipment to a mystery buyer who paid 20,000 silver a run, 20 million federal per delivery. And yet, the cash on site came to barely 2 million. A crew this rich does not keep 2 million in the sock drawer. Someone was hiding something, so I gave the order I'm still proud of. Search everything, dig everywhere, and interview the prisoners about their leaders' habits. The habits interview cracked it. The boss, several pirates volunteered, had one quirk. He always walked 2 full kilometers to relieve himself under one particular tree. 2 kilometers. Gentlemen, nobody's bladder is that shy. We dug under the world's most suspicious tree and pulled up 2 brocade boxes, buried deep, visited often, by a man whose paranoia was excellent and whose tradecraft was fatally toilet-based. Box 1. A dagger called the Crimson Blade, ancient, faintly wrong-looking, with a corrosion property that made wounds refuse to heal. Box 2. A quest scroll titled The Lost Divine Artifact, an invitation to hunt the scattered god weapons of the old continent. When the leader woke up, I conducted the interrogation myself, using the gentle method of waving his own creepy dagger around while wondering aloud where to begin. He fainted from pure imagination before I got within arm's reach. Woke up, saw the dagger again, told me everything in one breath. The flamestone trade, the mystery buyer, his dream of doing the artifact quest someday with the elite force he'd been building. All that treasure converted into books and daggers and ambition buried under his personal tree. I kept his dream in my pocket and his dagger on my belt. The artifact scroll waited for later, and the flamestone went straight to my blacksmith for weapons experiments. Every one of those decisions saved my life within the month, which is the kind of luck that makes a man superstitious about hoarding. The mystery buyer, incidentally, we met. On schedule, at the arranged sea coordinates, we ran the handoff ourselves with the pirates' own ships, and the buyer paid in cultivation manuals and materials without ever showing a face or a name. Somebody out there wanted flamestone in industrial quantities and didn't want to explain why. I filed that under the growing folder of questions with teeth. The folder was about to get its worst entry yet. Now, the part of the story where my own cultivation method turned on me. The 9 transformations of the divine dragon builds actual dragons inside you. The first one had set up shop in my head, and as it grew, it came with side effects. Pure yang energy, Lung Yun explained, with the composed face of a doctor delivering awkward news. Restlessness, fire in the blood. The technique of emperors, she said, and emperors historically had their own methods of balance. Great, I said. My superpower came with a personality. I handled it like an adult. I ran to the back mountain and beat boulders into gravel until the fire went quiet. And on the nights that wasn't enough, Ling Yun handled it like whatever rank of adult exists above that, sitting beside me, her cool hands on my shoulders until the dragon in my skull stopped pacing. Somewhere in those quiet evenings, we stopped pretending this was Lord and Vice Lord. No speeches, just two people who kept ending up on the same side of the curtain that a worm had eaten anyway. And then, one ordinary night, she handed me the most valuable secret in the game, like she was mentioning the weather. "My lord," she said, "you must not die in battle. Every player death damages the foundation, the real one, the body's capacity to cultivate. Die once, and epic-level methods may be closed to you forever. Die a few times, and even mid-rank techniques stop working. Some of you have died dozens of times already." I sat with that for a long moment, hearing the sound of an entire world economy quietly detonating. Because every big guild on the continent ran on one assumption: player lives are free. Zerg tactics, human wave assaults, throw 10,000 bodies at a stronghold, respawn tomorrow, repeat. Gale Guild had built a 300 billion war machine on the strategy of dying faster than the enemy could kill. And it was all secretly costing the players their futures. Every cheap death was a loan against the one thing that would soon matter more than money. I looked at Ling Yun. She looked back with the tiny smile of a woman who knows exactly what she just handed her man. Information like that isn't a secret. It's a weapon. The only question was where to aim it, and I already knew, because he'd put a bounty on my head and told the whole continent I was a thief. Patience, like I said. An ambush is just quiet with a plan. First, though, the game introduced me to the things that would make all our human drama look like recess. Level 4 required 50,000 people, advanced buildings, and one more trial. Ling Yun had prepared everything, including a new structure from my blueprint stash, the Ancestral Shrine of Loyal Souls, 3 floors of memorial tablets for every soldier who died for the territory. We held the ceremony before the trial. Thousands of soldiers stood in silence in front of the names of their friends, and I told them the truth. If you or I fall on a battlefield, this territory will remember us out loud, forever. When the rites finished, something settled over the army, some weight that made every man stand taller. The system probably called it a combat buff. It wasn't. It was a promise. Then I picked Hell difficulty again, because apparently I learned nothing, and took 300 elites into the trial space. It was wrong from the first second. No sunlight, no sound. A cursed gray plain where even the grass looked like it wanted to leave. And out of a spreading black mist walked a few dozen figures, human-shaped, wrong in the joints, wrapped in an aura that made my scalp crawl. Finally, their leader said, "Some fresh and tender humans. Today we eat well. We are the demon race," he said, "survivors from ancient times. It is your honor to see us." I asked Ironclad for a power reading, and for the first time ever, my walking epic-level threat assessment shook his head. No aura, no life signs he could read, like fighting stones that hate you. Then they hit us, and I learned what unkillable means. My archers put a dozen shafts into the lead demon. He didn't slow down. Black blood, no reaction, wounds closing while you watched. Ironclad hammered one 6 times, full power, lightning and all, plus 3 spears through the chest, before it finally stopped. These things had the strength of high-rank commanders and the pain response of furniture. We found the cracks by accident. Zhangwu's flame slash left a wound that kept burning and refused to close. A flamestone experimental arrow from Wei Han's quiver punched into an arm joint, and the regeneration just quit. Fire and lightning, and above all, flamestone, the weird volcanic ore stacked in my ring by the crate. I threw Wei Han my one flamestone sword and turned the battle into a supply chain lesson. Every demon we tagged with flamestone stayed wounded. Every wound stayed open. We took them apart, joint by joint, and their last commander knelt at the end and said something I filed away in the drawer marked "Future Problems." If our power had not been broken by the seal, this stone could never harm us. The seal. Sealed by whom? Breaking since when? The system announced my trial reward over his dissolving body, and I stood there, doing the math on what exactly this game was rehearsing us for. 63 of my men died in that gray place, a third of my elite force, and in the loot, next to the books and the coins, sat 3 small bottles that made the whole butcher bill almost worth it. Foundation repair solution. The cure for death's real price. The single most valuable consumable on the planet, and the planet didn't know it existed yet. The planet was about to find out, on my schedule, at my prices. But first, the sword found me. I'd been sitting on the lost divine artifact scroll from the pirate leader, and curiosity finally beat caution. The mission dropped my 300 men on a wasteland where a stone giant 10 meters tall stood up out of the ground and made the strangest demand I'd ever heard. Attack me 3 times. Not survive 3 attacks, deliver 3. So I did, and it nearly disassembled me. My first full-power swing bounced off with a recoil that almost took my arms. My second, a leaping strike to the shoulder, launched me backwards so hard I bounced. The third, a ground sweep to its shin, with absolutely everything the 9 transformations could feed me, tore the rod out of my bleeding hands and dropped me flat. I stood up anyway, because standing up is the one technique I've actually mastered. And the giant's chest opened. A broken blade flew out, just a tip, a fragment of something ancient, and pierced my chest before anyone could move, right over my heart, 1 centimeter deep and no further. The 2 dragons inside me swam to it like they'd recognized a relative. The system said 5 words. You have obtained the Zhuan Yuan sword. The sword of the Yellow Emperor. The blade of legend. Broken, incomplete, and choosing me anyway, with one condition whispered straight into my skull. Find my other fragments, and I will call you master. The stone giant crumbled into rubble, and out of its ruins rolled 2 parting gifts. A blueprint for a teleportation array, and a divine rank village founding token, usable, the description said, only on other continents. I remember reading that line and thinking, other continents, when would I ever? Keep laughing, past me. The universe was doing a setup with a very long fuse. Now, the nuke. Grim Gale had recovered from being publicly folded by an exhausted Ironclad, and he'd gone bigger. Gale Guild raised over $300 billion from real-world financiers, old money capital that had figured out cultivation might extend their lifespans and wanted the game locked down. With that fortune, Grim Gale launched the biggest recruitment blitz in gaming history. 12 level 3 strongholds crushed in a day, with the casualties eaten by human wave tactics. Signing bonuses, daily rewards, membership rocketing past 3 million, 4, 5. He posted the investor list like a battle flag and declared in an official address that Gale Guild was now the #1 guild in the game, that there were no rules, and that the strong were the only rules. He was completely right about that last part. He'd just miscounted who the strong were. Because while he was buying members, I'd been quietly selling. 10 major guilds, Liu Li and Clear Sky among them, had each paid me 10 million through system escrow for one sealed piece of information, the truth about death and the Foundation. 100 million total, and the 3-day head start to reorganize before I went public. All 10 spent those 3 days doing the same thing, silently dumping their casual members, hoarding resources for elites, and watching Gale Guild gleefully hire up everyone they cut loose. I ate roast tiger meat on a beach, watching Grim Gale's membership counter pass 5 million, listening to his victory speech, and composing my forum post like a man garnishing a dish. At 3 in the afternoon, his crowning glory. At 5, my post. I am Xu Chang Feng. Here is what the game has been hiding. Every death damages your foundation. Enough deaths and advanced cultivation is closed to you forever, in the game and in your body. Cultivation methods of high enough rank work in reality. Equipment marked with true essence can be carried into the real world. In conclusion, players, your life now has a price. Stop letting other people spend it. For about an hour, Gale Guild's machine held. They posted rebuttals, called it enemy propaganda, rallied the faithful. Then Scarlet Shard, president of Liu Li Guild, bought one of the 3 true essence weapons I'd listed at 20 million each, logged off, logged back on, and posted photographic proof that the sword was sitting on her real-world table. Followed by the announcement that Liu Li had already released 80% of its members and would only fund elites going forward. Then Clear Sky posted the same. Then 8 more guilds, one after another, a firing squad of confirmations. 5 million people did the arithmetic on their own bodies at the same moment. The stampede was biblical. New recruits grabbed their signing bonuses and vaporated. The small alliances Gale had absorbed dissolved overnight, keeping the acquisition money. Veterans who had died again and again in Gale's human waves, the true believers, discovered they'd been spending their futures on a company that was now cutting them for being damaged. I got an account of the scene inside Gale's headquarters later, through channels. Grim Gale reading my post in a silent command room. The quiet. Then the "it's fake" phase. Then the "it's propaganda" phase. Then a senior officer laying out the arithmetic of 5 million signing bonuses already paid to people who now had 0 reason to stay, and the table going over. He'd built the fastest growing organization in gaming history on the premise that death was free, and I'd repriced death mid-quarter. To his credit as a businessman, and his eternal damage as a human being, he amputated fast. Keep the core, dump the rest, and cut loose the loyal, dead-too-often veterans with pocket change, the exact people who'd bled their foundations dry buying his strongholds. Whatever army of enemies I'd made in my career, that single decision made him more and made them angrier, and they knew where he lived. 300 billion of investor money, gone. 5 million members, gone. The #1 guild in the world held the title for slightly under 2 hours. On the forum, someone asked the question of the year, who benefits from all this? I did not answer. I was busy selling foundation repair solution at 2 million a bottle to the same guilds who now understood exactly what it was worth, and being accused, correctly, of having planned the entire sequence. There are no rules, the man said. The strong are the only rules. Couldn't have put it better myself. The person who made out best from the whole affair, after me, was my downstairs neighbor, and watching her play both of my identities at once became my favorite spectator sport. Mei Lin had brokered the guild side of the intel sale as Shu'er, Liu Li Guild's suddenly indispensable contact to the mysterious Shu Changfeng. Her guild showered her with rewards and promoted her toward the core, and she'd earned it, honestly, by being the only person on the continent who worked the problem from both ends, pumping her masked contact in the game for information, while interrogating her boring gamer housemate in the villa for gossip about him, never suspecting they shared a nutrient solution budget. "Do you actually know Shu Changfeng?" she demanded one evening, blocking my door with her arms crossed. "We've traded," I said, which was, in my defense, the single most honest sentence ever spoken in that building. She was also, it turned out, cultivating herself half to death. She'd gotten her hands on a cold attribute method, the ice sealing art, and attacked it with the ambition of a woman who refused to stay middle management, training through nights, skipping the basics. One afternoon, she knocked on my door shivering, lips pale, cold radiating off her skin like an open freezer, deviation cold, the kind that eats you from the meridians outward. I'd read enough by then, and lived enough side effects of my own, to know what I was looking at. So I spent 2 hours doing the least glamorous rescue of my career, walking her up and down the back mountain, making her burn the stagnant frost out through movement, feeding her the boring advice that we mortals adapt to cultivation slowly, or it adapts us into a cautionary tale. When her color came back, she looked at me sideways and said, "You know a suspicious amount about this for a man with no guild." "I read forums," I said. "You read forums," she repeated, in the exact tone the sentence deserved. A few days later, Shu Changfeng happened to send Shu'er a gift for her brokering services, an advanced rank manual of the ice sealing art, the real thing, the version her guild would never have wasted on a mid-level member. Her scream of joy came straight through my floor. She never connected the timing. Or she connected it perfectly and decided some accounts are better left unaudited. With Mei Lin, I genuinely never knew, and that's why I liked her. The intel windfall funded my next 2 generals, because an empire is just its people wearing armor. Wang Guang, 17 years old, humble as bread and gifted like a rumor, took an epic saber set and grew an ocean wave technique that stacked power with every consecutive cut until the 7th swing arrived like a tide with a grudge. Wang Xiaowu, a compact, grinning menace who fought with fists and feet, caught blades barehanded, and collected enemy elites as a hobby. Alongside Wei Han and Jiang Wu, that made 4 names rising fast enough to frighten me a little. That was the actual machine under all my victories, not the ring, not the luck. A pipeline. Ling Yun found the talent, the shrine kept the faith, plunder paid for the books, and every battle graduated a class. Guilds bought soldiers. I grew them. While the guild world burned, I went sailing, and the ocean told me no. I'd been chewing on a question since the nautical charts. If all the continents share a sea, could a good enough ship just visit? So I took my flagship east at full speed, day and night, 500 miles, 800, 1,000. The wind rose. Strange fogs rolled through every half hour, thick enough to eat the bow of my own ship. I ordered more speed, because when the world puts up curtains, you check what's behind them. At 1 in the afternoon, the ship stopped. Not ran aground. Stopped, mid-ocean, like a toy pressed against glass. I sent divers down on Rokes to check the hull, and they surfaced with the strangest damage report in maritime history. Nothing below, Lord. The obstruction is in front of the water. So I walked to the bow, reached out over the open sea, and my hand flattened against something invisible and absolute. The system chimed. Congratulations, player Zhu Changfeng. You have discovered the boundary wall. Through it lie the other continents. A wall in the middle of the sea. 4 player continents walled off from each other, all of us fattening up in our separate pens. Every instinct I had said the same thing. Pens get opened. Someday this wall comes down, and on the far side are billions of players I've never scouted, guilds I've never heard of, and a clock I can't see. I sailed home with a new to-do list and got handed a deadline instead. The system's voice, server-wide this time, every continent at once. 1 million level 4 territories reached. In 3 days, the endless battlefield opens. Rankings begin. The rules dropped the next morning. Every lord could enter with 500 troops, no epic heroes allowed, into a colossal shared battle space full of bandit strongholds, level 1 at the rim, level 5 at the center. 3 days. Kill for points. Player deaths inside carried half foundation damage, which after my little press release everyone now understood was real money. No ironclad. Just me, 500 hand-picked SSS rank soldiers, 1,000 white horses, 200,000 attribute-forged arrows, and a bad attitude. We ported in at 8 sharp onto a sunny plain with a bandit camp conveniently in view, and I spent the first hour reading the room. The starter bandits died to a light breeze and dropped a map, clearly a gift from the system, showing the battlefield's anatomy. Level 1 camps at the rim, rising ring by ring to a level 5 fortress at the dead center. 1 point per starter bandit. 300,000 lords immediately began vacuuming the rim, and the leaderboard turned into a slot machine of nobodies. I charged through 9 camps in 90 minutes, mostly to warm up the horses, watched my ranking sink into the 6 digits, and did the math the leaderboard was designed to distract you from. 3 days. Rising point values. A cavalry force that could cross this map while infantry lords were still walking off their first ring. The rim was a trap made of small numbers. So while the whole continent farmed pennies and the forum speculated about why the famous Zhu Changfeng was ranked below 1 million, I pointed my cavalry at the center and rode away from the scoreboard entirely. The forum's theory was that I was washed. The forum's theories are the only renewable resource that outproduces my granaries. By the second morning, we'd found the level 3s, 500 bandits to a fortified camp, and inside the first one we cracked, my soldiers pulled a brocade box out of the leader's cabin. The system paid 1,000 points for opening it. The camp's entire kill list, leader included, had paid maybe 300. I sat on my horse rereading that number while an entire criminal business model assembled itself in my head. Forget clearing camps. Storm the center, kill the leader for his 100 points, grab the box, ride out. Minutes per stronghold. The first full run of the new doctrine was so clean it felt illegal. Scouts marked the camp. I split the assignments in one breath. Wang Guang and Wang Xiaowu take the left with the elites. Jiang Wu burns down the right. Wei Han floats with the archers and shoots whatever's currently the biggest problem, and I go straight up the middle with the cavalry wedge. We hit their wooden barricades at a full gallop, and I dismantled the obstacles myself, from horseback, with a rod, which is a sentence that would have amazed the me of 2 months ago and was now just commuting. Their leader came out swinging a ring-bladed saber with actual technique, real training, moves with names. I have one move, and its name is More. He suppressed me for 30 seconds on pure skill, and then his arms started losing arguments with my follow-through, and by the exchange where his numb hands dropped the soda, the outcome was arithmetic. Wang Xiaowu was already coming out of the leader's cabin with the box before the body settled. Total elapsed time inside the walls, under 20 minutes. We rode out through the gap we'd ridden in through, leaving a half-alive camp, a fortune in scattered loot, and several hundred bandits with a complicated story to tell. Then we did it again, and again. A white horse lightning raid hitting level 3 camps like a debt collection agency, hour after hour. Wei Han's arrows finding leaders' eyes, Wang Guang's saber waves stacking until they hit like surf made of knives, Wang Xiaowu punching weapons out of hands as a hobby, and me doing the thing that by now had a name on the forum, no technique, maximum physics. We left every camp half alive, loot scattered everywhere, and rode on. Which brings me to the woman collecting my garbage. Her name was Hua Min, though I didn't know it yet. A lord with 400 infantry who'd stumbled onto our trail of hoofprints and half-dead camps and made the extremely rational choice to follow the tornado and pick up everything it dropped. Camp after camp, she cleaned out my leftovers, easy kills, free skill books, coins carpeting the ground. Somewhere behind us, she was shouting at my dust cloud, trying to say hello. I heard nothing over 1,000 hooves and kept riding, which she took very personally. She finally caught up when I stopped, marched over 1.8 meters of legs and indignation with a giant axe on her shoulder, and demanded to know why I'd ignored her greeting. Swiftfoot, I said, do we know each other? You, she said. It was not a complete sentence. It didn't need to be. She asked to travel with us. I looked at her army, disciplined, decently equipped, wearing strange red armor from some ore in her territory. Magic resistant, she said. Totally useless, she said. My brain lit up like a switchboard, because I'd met exactly one thing that armor sounded made for, and it had told me its seal was breaking. I bought her ore supply on the spot, and Swiftfoot joined the caravan, complaining about the nickname at regular intervals and answering to it anyway. By evening of day 2, I was ranked in the top 1,000, and my box farming spree had a side effect I only learned about later. Hua Min, following my wreckage, had collected over 20 intermediate manuals and enough coin to fund her territory for a season, purely off what I couldn't be bothered to pick up. Half the leaderboard was fighting for scraps. The woman behind me was getting rich off my impatience. When she finally told me, I demanded a finder's fee. She demanded back pay for sanitation services. We called it even. Then the level 4s taught everyone humility, and I made a career choice that got me cursed in several dialects. A level 4 stronghold held 3,000 bandits, elite cores, layered defenses, and 2 leaders with area of effect ultimates. Hua Min and I found one under siege by a coalition of 16,000 players and pulled up on a hill to watch, because the smartest place in any gold rush is the Overlook. It went exactly the way I told her it would, beat for beat, like sad prophecy. The mob broke the first barrier and paid 3,000 men for it. They broke the second, and the bandits, instead of defending like sensible monsters, poured out and turned the siege into a blender. The players had numbers. Numbers don't help when a quarter of your force forgot shields, and your 17 mini-armies each answer to a different lord who's currently screaming. Then the 2 leaders emerged, and the field changed genres again. Each one waded through crowds swinging area ultimates that mowed dozens per swing. 16,000 attackers became 3,000, became 1,000. Everyone too deep in blood debt to retreat, spending lives for single points. When one leader finally went down under 100 bodies and the other stood swaying amid everything he'd killed down to his very last breath, I gave the order I'd been saving all afternoon. Wei Han, steal it. 1 arrow, 300 meters, straight through the throat. The kill credit and the leader's 100 points filed to my account. Then Wang Xiaowu, our sprinter, blew past the stunned survivors into the stronghold and came out with the brocade box, 10,000 points, before anyone processed what was happening. A dozen exhausted players watched us collect the entire jackpot their 12,000 dead had paid for, and the vocabulary they produced was genuinely educational. Was it shameless? Completely. Was it against the rules? There were no rules. A wise man told the whole continent so in an official address, right before I killed him with a basic staff technique. Speaking of whom, rank 1 was now mine, and the man I'd displaced was standing in the crowd. And then the field cleared, and standing in the middle of the wreckage was Grim Gale. He'd been running his own operation, buying loyalty with real-world compensation, 30,000 players under his banner, holding the #1 rank until I took it off him remotely. He recognized my massed cavalry. I recognized his face doing arithmetic about witnesses again, and I decided we'd finally arrived at the conversation we'd been postponing since the dragon. I dismounted alone and walked toward him through the corpses of his own point farm. Grim Gale, I said, loud enough for every camera in the crowd. We've been at each other's throats long enough. From today, no more threats. See each other, kill each other. That's the whole treaty. He drew his blade and reminded me he'd studied an epic cultivation method too. The spectators started placing bets, and the smart money said this would take half an hour between 2 epic-powered players. Someone in the crowd mocked my weapon, an ordinary iron rod, no glow, no name. I'll destroy you in 3 moves, I told him. He charged with both hands on the hilt. I met his slash with a one-handed block that stopped him cold and sent him skidding back 2 steps. That's all there is to you, I said, and moved. First blow, straight down, so hard the sword sheared out of his shattered grip and left the postal code. Second blow, flat sweep, full extension, everything the dragons had. They found his ranking in 2nd place and his body considerably further down the list. 2 moves. I'd promised 3 and finished early, which the forum, bless it, spent a week debating as false advertising. I walked back to my horse through a silence you could pour into cups. Behind me, 30,000 of his hired players quietly decided their compensation packages did not cover this. Somewhere out there, Grim Gale woke up in the real world with a day-long login ban, freshly educated about foundation damage, and began planning something patient and genuinely clever. I'll give him that. The man learned. Wrong lessons, but he learned. I teamed up exactly once on that battlefield, and only because a man surprised me with manners. Ant Guild's coalition, 20,000 strong, was staring down another level 4 stronghold when their representative walked over and greeted me with an old-fashioned fist salute. Cui Longwei, early 20s, big family, the rare rich kid who'd been raised right. He asked me to join the assault. I named terms that made half his council's faces curdle. I duel one of the 2 leaders with my own 5-man cell. Nobody interferes. I take my pick from the brocade box, and my kills are mine. Take it or leave it. Cui Longwei looked at my rank, did the humble math, and talked his people into it. Smart kid. So the continent got a controlled experiment. On one side of the stronghold, a 1,000-man elite team ground down one leader the traditional way and were nearly wiped out doing it. On the other side, 5 of us took the second leader apart like a practiced pit crew. Wei Han's 7-star volley blinding him, Wang Guang's stacked saber waves breaking his guard, Wang Xiaowu's fists finding every joint, Zhang Wu's flame slashes keeping his wounds honest, and me on top of him the whole time with maximum physics. When his ultimate finally came, I met it head-on instead of dodging, ate a 10-meter flight for it, and left him ruined enough for the others to finish. The comparison footage did numbers. Nobody argued about my terms after that. Then, on the final night, the battlefield flipped the table. The system's voice rolled over the entire space. The level 5 stronghold at the center, offended by 3 days of dead subordinates, was done waiting. In 2 hours, 100,000 bandits would pour outward in all directions and hunt every player still breathing. 2 hours to run, said everyone, and they ran, straight toward the rim, in the largest and most organized panic I've ever had the pleasure of not joining. Not everyone ran, to be fair. One coalition of 100,000 players decided that 100,000 bandits, split 4 ways, meant beatable fractions, so they formed a giant defensive square and waited to farm the wave. I respect the math. The math did not survive contact. 5,000 bandit cavalry hit that square like a wire through cheese, cut it clean down the middle, wheeled, and cut it again, and inside an hour, the largest player formation on the field was a casualty statistic with a plan. Watching the reports come in, I revised my estimate of the enemy from serious to professional. These riders had doctrine. Somebody in that center stronghold knew war. Which is exactly why I was doing different math. 100,000 bandits leaving the center meant one thing was suddenly, deliciously empty. The center. The vault. The stronghold every player agreed was unbeatable. Everyone else saw the apocalypse. I saw a house with the doors open and the family on vacation. Hua Min made her choice at the fork. I gave her spare war horses for her army and told her to scatter her people in small groups toward the rim, standard survival play. She gave the order, then turned her horse around and announced she was coming with me instead. I pointed out that following me meant riding toward the 100,000-man problem, not away from it. I was born somewhere peaceful, she said. I've farmed my whole game. If I'm ever going to be a real lord, I have to learn this part too. Even if the lesson is just how to run properly. Hard to argue with a woman quoting your own philosophy back at you while holding an axe. We faked our trail first because that cavalry was real. Decoy fires. Spare horses sent galloping off under skeleton crews to paint tracks in the wrong direction. Then every remaining mount muzzled, every man flat in the brush, while a 500-rider hunter squad thundered past close enough to smell. They read our fires, read our hoofprints, and chased the lie into the dark. The wilderness is honest. It tells whatever story you stamp into it. Then we got up, turned around, and rode into the storm's empty eye. Swiftfoot asked one more time if I was sure about the direction. Swiftfoot, I said, the wrong way is where they keep the money. The center camp was a city, barracks, warehouses, supply depots for 100,000 men, all of it unguarded. I walked through it with my divine ring open like the mouth of a whale, inhaling granaries whole. Grain, fodder, weapons, ore, tents, furniture. Hua Min trailed me, trying to keep a running total, and gave up somewhere past her ability to count. When she suggested burning what we couldn't carry, I told her, with complete sincerity, that waste was shameful, and every penny should be cherished. while vacuuming a warehouse into my jewelry with each sentence. She looked at me the way you look at a sermon delivered by a burglar, and at the center of the center, a small palace. And in the palace, on a throne, a man in golden armor who had not gone anywhere at all. The stronghold's king. The final boss of the entire battlefield, guarded by nothing but his own confidence, because what could possibly reach him here past 100,000 men with epic heroes banned at the door? He called us rats. He was so committed to the rats thing. My 10 generals are useless, he rumbled from the throne, letting you rats slip the net. They will be punished when they return. 10 generals. A command structure. The last piece of proof that this stronghold wasn't a dungeon. It was an army with a king. And then he stood up with his halberd, and I gave the only order that mattered. 50 spears, stay. Everyone else, out. And if we fall in here, you take the men home. That's a military order. Nobody argued out loud. Several argued with their feet by simply not leaving fast enough to be excluded. Hua Min planted her axe and stayed, chin up, quoting my own lesson back at me with her posture alone. We lost the opening, badly. I led with my best leaping strike, and he blocked it with the back of his hand, one-handed, commenting on my basic technique like a board examiner. His first real sweep sent me through 3 of my own men. His force scaled past anything we'd fought, a full tier above the trial bosses, and there was no ironclad behind that door because epic heroes couldn't enter this battlefield. Just us. And then my men started doing the thing that still wakes me up some nights, charging one at a time, each spending his strongest skill and his life to buy the king 1 second of imbalance. 1 second each. Every loss made the next man run faster, not slower. I stopped feeling my own injuries somewhere in the middle of it. When the mask of the funny lord comes off, this is what's under it. A man watching his people pay for his ambitions in installments and hating every coin. But seconds add up, and we spent them well. Wang Guang's saber waves stacked to 6, then 7, forcing the king to take him seriously. Wang Xiaowu's fists hunted the same shoulder wound over and over from behind. Wei Han's arrows arrived exactly when the halberd was busiest, and his last flame stone arrow found the gap under the arm and stayed there, burning. Hua Min's axe landed twice at exactly the right moments, and I mean exactly, both times on a wrist mid-swing, both times saving the man the king was about to finish. And when he finally reared back for the blow that would have closed the whole ledger, I was already inside his reach, too battered to dodge, holding the only weapon I owned that didn't care about golden armor. The Xuan Yuan sword went through his breastplate like an opinion through a committee. I told you, I said as he folded, you will die. Then I sat down very suddenly, because it turns out I'd been running on spite and internal bleeding for a while. Wei Han force-fed me territory issue medicine and gave me the count. 8 of us still standing, out of the room's original number, and every one of the fallen already resurrecting home in the territory, because that's what the shrine and the battlefield rules were for. Half foundation damage, not none. Every one of them would get a bottle of repair solution from my private stock and a place on the shrine's 2nd floor, and I'd have burned the whole 100,000 points to skip needing either. The system's announcement hit the entire battlefield. Level 5 stronghold leader slain. 100,000 points. Mission ended early, everywhere, at once, which means somewhere out on the rim, 100,000 bandits mid-massacre simply evaporated, and 1 million fleeing players got teleported home mid-scream, saved by a kill they wouldn't believe until the video came out. The vault box held gold by the chest, epic manuals, and 1 book wrapped in imperial yellow cloth that made my breath catch, a divine rank cultivation method. Phoenix Cry of the 9 Heavens, a goddess's art, female only. A dragon method found me, a phoenix method found her. If the game was matchmaking, it had excellent taste. I gave Hua Min an advanced set and 100 gold for her 2 perfect axe swings, took the golden throne as furniture because my brothers died in that room and I wanted the trophy, and went home ranked first by a margin the 2nd place player could not see with binoculars. The Vindication Tour ran itself. Every player I'd robbed, raced, or rescued had been recording, and once the login bans expired, the videos hit the forum in a wave. Me folding Grim Gale in 2 moves, frame by frame, dissected by commentators who'd bet on him. My 5-man cell dismantling a level 4 leader, cut against footage of a 1,000-man team dying to the same job. The betting threads that opened with Xu Changfeng won't last 1 minute, aged into museum pieces. By the end of the week, the last people still typing overrated had quietly deleted their accounts, and the phrase "number one player" stopped being a debate and became a spelling. Second place, incidentally, Grim Gale, who had bought his way up the board with 30,000 hired players, and now got to watch the final tally from underneath me. Some men collect stamps. I collect his worst days. Home was the good part. Ling Yun took the Phoenix method in both hands like something sacred, and when she absorbed it, the book dissolved into golden light that flowed into her, and out in the 100,000 mountains, birds began singing in the middle of the night. She opened her eyes, and they were the same eyes, and also not. "You are the most important person in this territory," I told her, "and to me. If not you, then who?" She held my hand and didn't let go for a long time. Statistically speaking, nothing changed. Everything changed. Then my formation master invented the engine, and he did it because he wanted air conditioning. I'm not making this up. Elder Guo, my great master of formations, had been studying the teleportation array blueprint, and one hot afternoon he wondered whether he could teleport cool air from outside into his workshop. Somewhere between that thought and dinner, he built a formation plate that teleported raw energy in a chosen direction. Ling Yun saw it, understood it in 4 seconds, and told him to keep going. A plate the size of a millstone. Strapped under a hull, it pushed water backward and the ship forward. No sails, no wind, no masts, which meant every deck could carry catapults instead of rigging. An engine. My cranky old array carver had invented the marine engine in a world of sailing ships by accident while chasing personal comfort. I nearly kissed him. He requested, instead, that I arrange for the pretty new tailor Great Master to be housed near his workshop. And I want it noted that I performed that particular diplomacy with a straight face and got 100 formation plates out of it. Everyone in my territory is a genius. Some of them are also shameless. It's a package deal. The scaling problem was pilots. Only a trained formation master could steer an engine plate, and I had exactly one, who was busy being a great master. So I walked into his workshop, summoned a guard, and ordered 300 SSS soldiers transferred to him as apprentices, effective immediately. Elder Guo shot to his feet in genuine panic, demanding to know if I intended to demolish his divine workshop by filling it with soldiers. I explained my reasoning like the visionary I am. Engine operators would steer warships in battle, so they needed to be soldiers who'd seen blood, not craftsmen who'd faint at the first boarding action, and SSS aptitude meant they'd learn fast. He haggled me down to a first batch of 30 trained in 10 days, secured his tailor adjacency arrangements, and delivered ahead of schedule, because shameless men with proper incentives are the most productive force in any economy. The engines ran on citrine at first, half an hour per charge, useless. What they wanted was spirit stone, a rare energy-dense mineral, and here the trading system produced my favorite transaction of the entire war. A player named Giant Pumpkin King, blessed with a fruit-filled mountain territory and no idea what he was sitting on, had listed spirit stones at throwaway prices because nobody on the continent knew a use for them. I knew the use, so I couldn't let him know I knew. I told him I needed them to pave my floors. Feng shui, I said. My territory's energy flow demanded spirit stone tiling, and possibly, later, a lined swimming pool. There was a long pause in the chat, during which a man 3 provinces away audibly lost respect for me. "The rich really live differently," he finally wrote, and sold me 1,200 units. As far as Giant Pumpkin King knows to this day, the #1 player in the game walks barefoot across the most valuable energy source in the world on his way to the bathroom. I'd feel guilty, but my fleet now cruised without wind, and guilt doesn't do 18 knots. Next, the system announced round 2 of its grand tournament. Individual combat, open to all players, no death penalty, fight a training dummy, difficulty of your choice from easy to hell, ranked by tier and clear time, 3 attempts each. I'd skipped nothing this game had offered so far. I wasn't starting now. Hua Min messaged me before the gates opened, asking what a newly minted advanced cultivator should pick. I told her to open with hard and climb, treat the whole thing as free training, and stop caring about rank. She reported back later with the fierce pride of a farm girl gone feral. Hard cleared in 8 minutes, extreme attempted, death accepted as tuition. Somewhere in the last month, she'd stopped being the person who followed my hoofprints and started being someone her own soldiers followed. Fastest apprenticeship I never taught. My own opening act, extreme difficulty, was a wooden man 2.5 meters tall with arms like dock pilings. We beat on each other for 5 minutes and 21 seconds, at the end of which he was kindling and I was ranked first on the continent. Fine, warm up. Then I chose hell, and the room sent out a golden man. Golden Cypress, he corrected me when I accused the system of cheating. Then he moved, and I spent the next 47 minutes in the single hardest fight of my life against a creature with no wounds to exploit, no stamina to drain, and a counterforce on every blow that traveled up my arms like a personal earthquake. I broke 5 iron rods on him. He broke most of the flooring with me. I stopped attacking everything and started attacking one knee, over and over, 100 strikes to the same joint, my hands going numb and getting burned back to life by the 9 transformations on a loop, until finally, I heard the most beautiful sound in the world, a crack. I walked out of that hall soaked, shaking, and alone at the top of a leaderboard with exactly 1 hell tier clear on it. The entire continent had watched the times update. Nobody else finished hell. A handful cleared extreme in over 10 minutes and felt good about it, briefly. And then a trader did me the enormous favor of leaking my purchase history, and the forum discovered the best joke of the season. At the time I'd killed Grim Gale in 2 moves, the famous Shu Changfeng had not yet learned the intermediate staff technique. I'd folded the president of a major guild, an epic method cultivator, using the basic staff skill the system hands out for surviving wolves. Basic. Technique. The forum turned it into a unit of measurement. Grim Gale equals 1 basic staff swing. His comeback campaign died laughing, and somewhere out there the man himself smashed another table, which by my count made him single-handedly responsible for the furniture industry's best quarter in years. I did contribute 1 post to the pile, and I've been told it was the cruelest thing I ever wrote, which is rich considering it contained no insults at all. It opened. A mere Grim Gale? Can we cool down and discuss something that matters? Then I listed my trade inventory, epic methods, advanced methods, bulk manuals, seeking quality materials and quest scrolls only, and closed with some friendly life advice about focusing less on headlines and more on improvement. The whole continent understood the arithmetic instantly. I hadn't attacked him. I'd priced him, somewhere below the cost of a paragraph. Anyway, he and Comet were already building the trap by then, so let the record show the man was more dangerous humiliated than proud, and I handed him humiliation in bulk. Some invoices you write yourself. My prize for the tournament was a scroll. Purge the demon race remnants. The seal had leaked, the scroll said. Escaped demons were corrupting humans out in the world. The top 100 players each got 1 scroll. 1 day inside per use, unlimited troops. My first run set the template. The scroll dropped 10,000 of us outside a ruined city. Walls crumbled, streets silent, and the first inhabitants who shuffled out of the houses were the worst thing I'd seen in the game. People. Former people, skin shadowed over, eyes red, ordinary villagers the demons had corrupted into half-things. The scroll had warned me. Standing in the street watching them come was different from reading it. We put them down fast and clean, and I didn't make a single joke that day, and I'm not making one now. The real demons waited outside the city, and their commander arrived in style, carried on a sedan chair by his own soldiers, wrapped in an aura you could feel on your teeth, drawling about how the humble humans had sent him fresh servants. He got exactly 1 monologue. Wei Han's answer was an arrow of solid flame stone that knocked him off his palanquin mid-sentence, and then my formations rolled over his warband with a full arsenal of the one substance their immortality couldn't argue with. The commander himself took me, Ironclad, and Wei Han working in shifts, lightning to slow him, the crimson blade to keep his wounds honest, 1 last arrow to the chest to close the account. A day's work, 100 casualties, and loot that included the bottles, always the bottles, foundation repair solution accumulating in my ring like a private central bank. The other winners charged in with their armies and got annihilated so uniformly it looked coordinated. Whole teams gone in 3 hours. Because nobody else had discovered Flamestone, and you cannot beat an enemy whose wounds refuse to stay open. Within a week, purge scrolls were considered cursed paper and sold for nothing. which is when I started buying them all. I'd sat on two secrets, Flamestone and Demon Killing, and the arbitrage practically wrote itself. Liu Li Guild wanted Flamestone to run their own purges. Fine, paid in scrolls. They'd burn a scroll, take heavy losses on their thin Flamestone rations, and come back needing more stone, payable in more scrolls. Meanwhile, my army ran a scroll a day like a commuter service, farming demons who dropped money, manuals, and, best of all, foundation repair solution by the bottle. My monopoly funded their attempts to compete with my monopoly. Scarlet Shard eventually worked out the whole loop and sent me a message calling me shameless. Free market economy, I replied. She did not dispute the market, just my character. Somewhere in that stretch, the mountains tried to kill me, and I came back better. It started with a falcon. Not a bird, a monster, wingspan like a glider, nesting at the top of a 100-meter tree deep in the ranges. A messenger animal like that, in a world where I couldn't trust the player mail system, was worth a war. I climbed for the nest. The falcon had a different plan. It let me grab its talons, then simply flew away with me attached, at speeds that turned the wind into a wall, over one mountain range after another, waiting for my arms to give out. My arms don't give out. That's the one review everyone agrees on. So after 100 miles of failing to shake me, the bird escalated. It found a lake, mirror still, dead silent, not one fish, not one ripple, and dropped me in the middle of it. The water wasn't water. It was cold as a concept, cold that switched my body off between one heartbeat and the next. I sank into the middle depths and hung there, frozen solid from the outside in, fully conscious, unable to twitch a finger, in a lake the falcon had clearly used before as a tidy way to file problems under permanent. What it couldn't have known, I don't freeze alone. 2 dragons of the 9 transformations swam my meridians for hours, hauling warmth through me like stokers in a sinking ship. And somewhere in that long, cold darkness, something new kindled in my heart meridian and caught. A 3rd dragon, born in the one place the ice couldn't reach. Warmth spread from my chest outward, finger by finger, and when it hit my hands, I swam up, broke the surface, and stood on the shore of the deadliest lake in the mountains, steaming gently, one realm stronger than when I went in. The falcon had assassinated me into a breakthrough. 5 days of running mountain ridges got me home, where I found the same falcon and its mate circling my men in a rage because in my absence, my hunters had collected its 3 chicks. Family negotiations. I understood those. I stood in the open, ran the 9 transformations until the dragon pressure rolled off me in waves and made the offer. Serve as my messengers, raise your chicks under my protection, or we keep escalating and everyone loses. The 2 falcons circled, conferred, and landed. Epic level, both of them, the system noted, as one of them pushed its head into my hand with the grudging arrogance of a cat accepting employment. My postal service now flew at altitudes archery couldn't discuss, and my letters home crossed 1,000 miles in a day. Every court needs a spy master, though, and mine found me. He called himself Mastermind, ran a tiny guild that dealt purely in information, and came recommended as the man who could move my surplus of true essence weapons. I had over 100 by then, looted from demons and bosses, and the market for them had gone feral for a reason I only learned mid-negotiation. People had tried using real-world weapons to channel cultivation power, and real-world steel shattered under it like candy glass. True essence gear was the only equipment on Earth that could survive a cultivator using it. Every blade in my ring wasn't a collectible. It was next-generation armament, and I'd been storing the arsenal of the future next to my camping tents. Mastermind moved 20 of my pieces at $1 million+ each, took no commission, and then showed his real face. Head of National Intelligence, in the flesh, playing the game the way he worked. He had a proposal wrapped in a compliment. Dozens of foreign intelligence services, he said, had planted spy territories across our continent years in advance, fake lords with real budgets. In the real world, you can only watch them. In the game, someone with no guild, no oversight, overwhelming force, and a documented indifference to public opinion could simply remove them and keep everything they owned. You're alone, he said, and populations are your weakness. They have people. Take theirs. I'd have been offended by how well he'd read me if the reading weren't so profitable. A hit list of 40+ territories, each one a legitimate military target stuffed with stolen funding, advanced artisans, and trained populations, and the man handing it to me got his counter-espionage done for free. Everyone uses everyone. The trick is to be the one who's also getting paid. I told him yes, and my army stopped being a defense force. We were going shopping. The first name on the list was Dashi Territory, a thriving coastal town run by a lord whose real name was Kenji Tanaka, a foreign operative building his agency and overseas naval base on my continent's dime. His territory specialized in shipwrights. Dozens of advanced shipwrights and carpenters, the exact profession my fleet was starving for. It was like the hit list had been sorted by my wish list. We came out of the dawn haze at full engine speed, no sails to spot on the horizon, 1,000 miles from home after a day and a night of continuous steaming that no fleet on the continent could have matched or predicted. Their patrol boat spotted us with about 90 seconds to live. The crew stared at the impossible silhouettes, hesitated over whether to report first or confirm first, and got their answer from my catapults. 8 stones in 2 volleys, and the sea closed over the question. The players in the water were collected by my fast boats before anyone reached a keyboard. No message left that horizon. Then 8,000 men hit the beach and crossed 30 miles at cultivator pace, and here's where the game's own rules did half my work. A territory only warns its lord when a large force actually crosses the border, and Kenji Tanaka was off networking at an alliance function, ocean of messages away. By the time his warning chimed, my cavalry was on his main street. By the time his confused administrators organized a response to his confused questions, my army was at his administrative center, and the response consisted of a crowd of half-dressed defenders discovering that their entire defensive doctrine was an assumption that nobody could get here. Crouch and live, we called, and most of them crouched. The ones who didn't made their choice with weapons in hand. The empty arrow towers said everything about this territory. Money for shipyards, money for spy schools, not one coin for the boring business of actually being ready. Ironclad walked into the administrative center and shattered the territory's foundation stone with one swing, which is the game's version of a demolition notice. Then came the harvest, and what a harvest. Warehouse after warehouse into my ring. Grain, ore, weapons, and a timber yard of ship-grade hardwood 1 grade below black jade. A crate of several hundred cultivation manuals, which prisoners explained their lord handed out publicly every month as a morale program, a genuinely clever management trick that I looted with sincere professional respect. And the crown jewels, dozens of advanced shipwrights and carpenters, the exact professionals my fleet had been starving for, escorted aboard my flagship with the reverence normally reserved for relics. 160,000 people boarded the transports. Ling Yun's welcome system was already waiting on the far shore. Somewhere across the sea, Kenji Tanaka logged into a smoking crater and a career change. He went to the forum and wept at length about unprovoked banditry, which, considering what his salary was for, took spectacular nerve. The fallout was educational. His guild, the 7-Star Alliance, one of the continent's top 100, went on the forum to denounce me as a lawless tyrant, and teamed up with, of all people, Grim Gale, forming a coalition they actually named the Dragon Hunting Squad. Meanwhile, the stone market went insane, because every lord watching my highlight reel simultaneously realized they needed city walls, yesterday. Scarlet Shard messaged me complaining that my rampage had tripled her construction costs. If you want stones, I said, I sell in bulk, discounted. You are shameless, she said, and bought 100,000 units. The second raid taught me spies come in more flavors. Sichuan territory sat inland, a jewel of a resource town run by a graceful, beloved lord who was, per the file, one Ayumi Yamamoto, professional intelligence officer with a decade of cover. We arrived at dinner time with 10,000 cavalry, and she made a decision I still respect. She didn't fight. She walked out in front of my army, put on the performance of her life, tears, trembling, appeals to my mercy for her innocent people, and offered me everything in exchange for the territory's survival. The performance was flawless. It was also, per the file in my pocket, a performance, the honey trap chapter straight out of her training manual, and I stood there wearing my mask, thoroughly enjoying being the only person in the audience who'd read the script. So I played my role too. Because here's the thing her theater accidentally revealed. Her mountains held a spirit stone deposit. Destroying Sichuan would net me 1 good loot day. Owning Sichuan meant a fuel mine with a competent manager who'd work herself to the bone proving her loyalty, because she thought she was infiltrating me. I accepted her vassalage with grave reluctance. I stationed 2,000 soldiers under Jiang Wu, took control of the food supply so the territory ate from my hand, absorbed her army, took half her artisans, and let her keep her title and her secret. Then, as a gesture of trust, I took off my mask for her, and only for her. "You're the first person in the game to see my face," I told her, and watched her file it away as the intelligence coup of her career. She reported it to her handlers. Her protection status got upgraded to maximum. Her agency now had every incentive to keep her, and therefore my fuel mine, safe and thriving. The face I'd shown her, of course, was one of my true-false masks. Somewhere in a foreign intelligence archive, there's a beautifully detailed dossier on a man who does not exist. I think about it when I need cheering up. Her administrative center told its own story, by the way. Inside, everything was decorated in her homeland style, mats and screens, the private museum she kept to remember who she really worked for after a decade undercover. I looked around, mentioned casually that I didn't care for the aesthetic, and left. When my officers visited the following month, the whole interior had been remodeled, and word was the Lord of Sichuan had developed strong local tastes and strong opinions about her old furniture. Espionage cuts both ways. She thought she was infiltrating my empire. My empire was quietly redecorating her. I also fed her one careful lie on my way out, a promise that supply convoys from my territory would arrive by the next evening. She'd clock the timing, calculate sailing distances, and triangulate my home to a stretch of coast where my home has never been. Somewhere in that same foreign archive, next to the dossier on the man who doesn't exist, there's a map with a confident red circle on 400 miles of empty water. I hope they framed it. The third raid, Yunnan territory, was a pure speed exercise because Yunnan sat inland where no fleet should reach, defended mostly by geography and complacency. We landed at a wild stretch of coast, built makeshift piers overnight, and rode. 10,000 cavalry, 2 horses each, 3 days compressed into forced marches with falcons scouting overhead. At 3 in the morning, we split into 2 wings outside their walls, one under me, one under Ironclad, and waited in the grass for the signal we'd agreed on, which was a falcon's cry, because I run the only army in the game whose attack order is birdsong. 5 in the morning, one long cry, both gates at once. Their vice lord's defense consisted of sprinting through the streets in sleepwear shouting enemy attack, which, as an alarm system, has the advantage of honesty. The garrison assembled into a brave, confused crowd at the administrative center and got 10 minutes of my cavalry instead of the briefing they needed. Their actual lord made it back online just in time to yell half an accusation at me about becoming the public enemy of gaming, and Wei Han's arrow concluded the press conference at the comma. Yunnan's specialty, per the file, was training surveyors, cartographers, and intelligence analysts, and I looted the entire faculty. My territory had been drawing its own maps with hunters and guesswork. Now I owned a professional geographic institute with a grudge. 200,000 more people sailed home with us, and I burned the emptied warehouses behind me, partly for security, mostly because nothing hides the existence of a spatial ring like a fire that could plausibly have eaten the inventory. 3 raids, 500,000 new citizens, the stone market still hyperventilating, and a coalition of my enemies finally concluding what I could have told them at the start. Nobody was going to beat me with soldiers. So they stopped using soldiers. My territory crossed 1 million residents that month, the army passed 30,000, and the whole time, the 2 people I'd humiliated most were building me a present. Comet, chief of the 7-Star Alliance, owned a rare scroll bought off a collector. Use it on a target, and the target teleports to a death zone, with one strange catch. The destination's danger scaled with the power gap between victim and caster. The stronger the victim relative to the user, the deeper the hole the scroll dug. Against me, cast by some minion, it would open a door to somewhere genuinely lethal. And Grimgale, twice killed, endlessly memed, had finally absorbed the one true lesson of our acquaintance. Never fight me. Trap me. He contributed the thing Comet's scroll needed most, which was a way to know, in advance, exactly where I would stand. Their bait was beautiful. A Special Forces mission scroll, the first elite unit unlock in the game, sold to me by Shade Stairs Gloom, the slippery broker I'd traded with since the Stardust Sand days, at a price low enough to feel like a favor and high enough not to smell like one. The same man who'd once introduced me to Grim Gale for free. In hindsight, the man's entire business was introducing me to Grim Gale. The mission had one architectural feature that made the whole conspiracy work. It ran at a fixed location, a stone colossus out in the wilderness, hundreds of meters tall. A destination they could scout, prepare, and mine like a driveway. I bought it the day it was offered, paid 10 million and 2 advanced books for my own ambush, and rode off to claim it with a smile. When I need to feel humble, I remember that week. The smartest man on the continent, whistling on his way to the mousetrap, complimenting the cheese. They almost fumbled it anyway, and I'd have died never knowing how close the farce ran. Their original plan was a physical ambush, thousands of troops ringing the statue. Then their spotters, lying in the hills wearing homemade leaf camouflage, and I have it on good authority this included hand-woven green hats, saw my 10,000 cavalry arrive with air support. 2 epic falcons circling on patrol will really compress a conspiracy's options. The ambush army quietly went home. Plan B stayed. 1 formation carved at the statue's exit, 1 assassin with a stealth skill, 1 button to press. To be fair to me, the mission itself was real, and it nearly did their job for them. 20 of us entered, the cap for the trial, and met a stone guardian holding a halberd, a dead legend animated by leftover Will, who informed us we'd wake him with blood and offered a simple test: survive 3 of his strikes. His first casual sweep, from 30 meters away, put all 20 of us on the ground with the wind alone. The second, a horizontal cut he announced like a poem, 1 word at a time, snapped my black jade rod in half and broke something in everyone who stood in its path. 12 of my 20 didn't survive the trial. They died the way my people always die, which is the way I can't talk about casually, charging 1 at a time into a blow they knew they couldn't stop, spending themselves to blunt it for the men behind them. Ironclad took the 3rd strike head-on, with his domain fully open and every drop of power he owned, and the shockwave of that collision rippled the air like water. Then the Guardian went still, said, "Treat my halberd well," and became a statue again. We'd passed. 8 of us, carrying the halberd and the technique manual of a dead legend, walked out of the mission space into the evening light, and the ground lit up under our feet. The assassin was fast, I'll grant him that. 1 flare of light, 1 triggered formation, and the world came apart around 6 of us. I had half a second, and I spent it on 2 words: go back. Then the light swallowed me, Ironclad's roar cut off mid-syllable, and the eastern continent disappeared. Here's the beautiful, stupid irony they never planned. The scroll's death zone scaling assumed 1 target, and their assassin was weak. 6 targets, elite ones, meant the power gap collapsed, and the death zone downgraded from certain doom to merely somewhere else. Better still, they'd carved their formation on top of the mission's own teleport array, and the 2 arrays stacked like crossed wires. Grimgale and Comet stood over their triggered trap, watched their video evidence, and celebrated my death. I woke up on another continent. Specifically, I woke up standing in somebody's throne room in the middle of somebody's coup. Picture it from my side. 1 flash of light and 6 of us, me, Wang Guang, Wei Han, Gao Xuan, a swordsman from my newest crop of epic students, and 2 wounded soldiers we were carrying, materialize in a torchlit great hall. Overturned chairs, 2 bodies on the floor, a wounded man on a raised seat dripping, 2 more wounded men propping themselves up on their weapons in front of him, everyone frozen mid-betrayal, staring at the strangers who just fell out of the ceiling. Long silence. Then the man on the throne, gambling magnificently, croaked, "Brave warriors! Kill those 2 traitors and I'll make you my second in command." The 2 traitors immediately counterbid. "Don't listen to him. He's the greedy leader we're rebelling against. Kill him and take his seat." I looked between them. Wounded gang boss, wounded rebels, an entire mountain stronghold of 3,000 bandits somewhere outside, and me, freshly exiled, in urgent need of a base of operations. There was an obvious move, and I made it. I walked up the steps, ended the boss's career with 1 thrust of my new halberd, turned to the rebels, and asked if they'd like to work for new management. The former boss's eyes went wide with the specific betrayal of a man who realizes he offered the job to the applicant. The rebels, sensible professionals, knelt on the spot. I kicked the blood-stained throne off the dais, and it cracked open like a piñata, spilling a hidden brocade box, gold, 2 advanced manuals, and, I swear the universe has running bits, another lost divine artifact scroll. Then I reached into my ring, pulled out the actual golden throne I'd looted from the endless battlefield, set it on the dais, and sat down on my own furniture. The rebels' eyes went wide. "First leader," they said, with total sincerity. "Correct," I said. Now, the bad news, which I discovered over the next hour of frantically checking my interface. Every contact grayed out. The forum in front of me, written in half a dozen scripts I needed auto-translate for. I was on the southern continent, an ocean and a boundary wall away from home, in the player region shared by Japan, Korea, India, and half of Southeast Asia. 3 billion players, none of whom I knew, plenty of whom came from the exact intelligence services whose branch offices I'd been burning down all month. No way back. No way to contact Ling Yun or Ironclad or anyone. As far as the eastern continent could measure, Xu Changfeng had been teleported into a death zone and never logged in again. I gave myself one night to feel that. My territory, my people, the woman running both, all of it on the far side of a wall I'd personally confirmed was unbreakable, and the last thing I'd said to my best friend was 2 words of retreat order. Then I got up, because sulking is a luxury for people whose enemies think they're alive. Mine thought I was dead. Do you understand what a gift that is? Grimgale and Comet were celebrating. The dragon hunting squad was disbanding for lack of dragon. Every scope on the continent had swung away from my home, and I was standing in an unclaimed hemisphere holding a divine rank founding token that only worked on other continents. The system has a sense of humor, I told my new bandit subordinates, and it's all at my expense, but sometimes the joke lands in my favor. First, identity. I took out the true-false mask, the dragon-hide treasure I'd been saving since the Azure Dragon, and built a new man. Taller cheekbones, a scar, a foreigner's name assembled for the local market. Kageyama. The mask didn't just change my face, it changed me, all the way down to what the system itself could read. When I later used the founding token, the game politely asked which of my 2 identities should own the new territory. Even the system couldn't see through the mask. Xu Changfeng stayed dead. Kageyama, mysterious scarred warlord, opened for business. Second, consolidation. My inherited gang, freshly renamed the Skyblasting Gang because I refused to rule anything with a boring name, had 3,000 members and 7 smaller bandit crews in the region paying tribute or freelancing. I visited all 7 with the main force. 3 surrendered at the sight of us. 4 wanted a demonstration, got 1 charge each, and then surrendered. Inside a week, I had a bandit confederation, 5,000 fighters, 6,000 support hands, and a mountain fortress, assembled the same way I'd built everything since the Wolves. Show up, hit the biggest one, adopt the survivors. Management transition went smoother than any corporate merger, thanks to a ceremony I invented called Show Them Something. The gang's surviving 2nd and 5th bosses, both recovering from coup wounds, assembled the 40-odd small leaders in the Great Hall to swear in the scarred stranger on the Golden Throne, and I could feel the room doing quiet math about how permanent I was. So I had Wang Guang, Wei Han, and Gao Xuan each give a demonstration in the courtyard. 3 techniques, 3 craters. 40 small leaders performed the fastest sincerity upgrade in bandit history, and the wounded 2nd boss volunteered his own demotion before anyone asked, sliding gracefully from 2nd in command to 5th, which is the kind of situational awareness that keeps a man alive through 2 regime changes in 1 week. I let him keep his dignity and his job. A gang needs old hands who know where everything is, and nothing guarantees loyalty like a man who has personally witnessed the alternative. My Eastern officers took local names for cover, which produced the sentence I still can't say without smiling. Wei Han, the deadliest archer of the Eastern continent, now answered to Toyotomi Tieyi, and answered to it with the long-suffering face of a professional who has read his contract and found no clause about names. Third, the token. My scouts found the spot, a plain near a deep water bay 50 miles off, harbor potential written all over it. I planted the divine founding token, and the system paid out for first use, a bonus of 2 hero recruitments. 2. I'd built an entire continental empire off 1 pull. Now the machine handed me 2 more, and I'd like to report that the Gacha gods remain undefeated comedians. Pull 1, a legendary rank support. Out of the new administrative center walked Ren Mori, graceful, kimono, flawless manners, bowing at angles I'd need a protractor to reproduce. Loyalty 80 out of the box, competence radiating off her, a vice lord for the new world. Not Ling Yun, nobody's Ling Yun, but the moment I dumped a warehouse district of supplies out of my ring and told her to skip the frontier village phase entirely and build me a walled city from bare grass, she blinked exactly once, recalibrated her entire understanding of her employer, and started assigning work crews. The local service culture took adjusting on my end, too. The first morning she was kneeling beside my bed when I woke, awaiting instructions, and I nearly levitated through the ceiling. We negotiated a compromise. She'd stop treating me like a shrine, and I'd stop issuing city-sized orders before breakfast. Neither of us fully honored it. The city got built anyway. Pull 2. The ground flashed, and something 2 meters tall picked me up off my feet in a hug that reorganized my spine. "My lord," boomed a voice from somewhere above my head, "you're so weak. How will you ever conquer me?" Angel Astra, epic level hero, White battle robe, face of an angel, build of a siege engine, and the personality of a natural disaster with a sword. She carried a two-handed greatsword longer than most doorways and demonstrated her credentials by casually turning several boulders into gravel, then informed me she was one step from projecting sword energy and that she only respected strong men, so I should hurry up. I had, in one afternoon, recruited the politest woman on the continent and the least, balance in all things. And then, before I'd finished drawing the city plans, the system pulled the fire alarm on the whole world. Server-wide announcement, every continent at once. Due to major changes, the game would shut down for a 3-day update. After the update, player-to-player messaging was dead. Carrier pigeons only, range limited, delayed in wartime. No system warnings when your territory got invaded. Wars would be fought blind, the old way, the real way, and players had 1 hour to log out. The world, meanwhile, would keep running without us. I've thought a lot about the timing. A cross-continent founding token gets used for the first time, and within days, the system rebuilds its entire communication layer into a wartime configuration. Either the game was always heading here, or I'd tripped something. Both options meant the same thing. The tutorial was over. All of it, the trials, the tournaments, the demon purges, the rankings, every system in this game had been one long boot camp, and somewhere out past the boundary walls, whoever built this was getting the measuring tape ready. I spent my hour like a man packing for a fire. Orders to Mori, build, recruit, here's the budget, which is to say, here's a warehouse district from my ring. Orders to Astra and my eastern officers, hold the stronghold, train, distribute these epic and advanced manuals to anyone with talent, and do not, I looked directly at Astra, start any wars while I'm gone. She smiled the way weather smiles. Then the world went dark for 3 days, and I did something overdue. I got rich in real life, loudly. My game earnings had piled past absurd, so I bought a lakeside villa deep in the Kunlun Mountains. 4 floors, a glass observatory on top, a private lake outside, 120 million, paid in full, online, like ordering noodles. My old villa housemates were being consolidated into guild dormitories anyway. Meilin came to say goodbye before she moved out, and by then she'd long since worked out more than she ever said out loud. Our whole arrangement had grown into the strangest friendship I had. 2 professional information dealers who'd stopped charging each other. She told me her guild was taking her in-house. I told her to charge them properly for herself. Contact me in the game, she said from the doorway. My name's Shuer, as if I hadn't known since the beginning, as if she hadn't either. Then I disappeared into the mountains with my gaming pod, my nutrient solution, and a horizon with nobody in it. The #1 player in the world was now a dead man with 2 continents, and his forwarding address was a lake at 5,000 meters. 3 days later, the servers came back, and I logged into the best possible news, delivered in the funniest possible way. The Eastern Continent forums were screaming. 2 more spy territories from Mastermind's list had been razed to the ground, warehouses emptied, populations marched off, foundations shattered in textbook Xu Changfeng style, while every player on the planet was locked out of the game. I hadn't done it. I'd been shopping for real estate an ocean away. Ling Yun had done it. My vice lord, with the whole player world offline and unable to interfere, had reviewed the spy territory target list I'd left behind, mobilized the army under Ironclad, and executed 2 flawless, simultaneous campaigns, because, in her considered opinion, the territory needed the resources and the timing was favorable. And read the craftsmanship. She'd split the forces cleanly, 1 strike group by fast fleet to a coastal target, 1 overland column to an inland one, both timed to hit while every lord on the continent was locked out of his own account and physically unable to call for help or even watch. The victims logged back in after 3 days to smoke, empty warehouses, and populations already resettled under her administration. Learning trades, drawing salaries, being welcomed by a resettlement pipeline she'd refined across 500,000 previous arrivals. Even Ironclad's demolition of the administrative centers carried her signature. Thorough, tidy, and finished ahead of schedule. The forum was losing its collective mind. The dead man's territory attacks without him. Is his ghost commanding it? Did the NPCs take over? Should somebody check? I sat on my new golden throne on the wrong side of the world, reading panicked forum threads about my own haunted empire, laughing until my ribs complained. She'd added 400,000 people. The population was near 1.5 million. She'd started paying the army out of profits from goods the territory now manufactured. My home was not merely surviving my death, it was thriving on it, and the whole East was terrified of a widow who wasn't one. Which left 1 piece of unfinished business on my new continent, proving the dead man's second life had teeth. The proof invited itself. While I'd been offline, Astra had interpreted "do not start any wars" as "do not start any wars I'd hear about," taken the gang out, and crushed a pirate crew in a night raid. Her after-action report, delivered by a messenger who stood as far from her as the room allowed, included the phrase, "We could have captured 1,800, but Lord Astra didn't hear the surrender over the fighting, so we captured 1,100. Didn't hear the surrender. For several hundred people's worth of not hearing. I gave her the sternest lecture I could deliver to someone who could bench press my cavalry, and she absorbed maybe a fifth of it. And honestly, on a continent where I was starting from zero, a monster on a leash was worth 10 diplomats. Then somebody weighed us and decided we looked edible. His name was Kareem, a local lord who'd scouted my mountain stronghold, seen the shabby walls and the skeleton day crew, priced us as a straightforward level 3 bandit farm, and marched over with 6,000 troops to collect. From his side of the ledger, free experience. From mine, a delivery. Because here's what his scouts couldn't see from the tree line. The shabby stronghold held 5,000 reorganized veterans, a battery of shoe crossbows from my ring, an archery corps under an epic-level marksman, 4 officers raised on Eastern campaign doctrine, and 2 monsters, me and her. He attacked at night, which he must have felt very clever about. His men charged the gates in a mob, torches up, confidence high. Weihan waited until the mob was inside the arrow's dinner radius and called 3 volleys. The night lit up with falling men. Then the gates opened from the inside, which is never the direction you want gates opening when you're attacking, and we came out. I'd love to narrate my own contribution, but the truth is nobody watched me, because Astra happened. She went through 6,000 men like a rumor, great sword sweeping arcs you could have parked carts in, moving to wherever the enemy was thickest on the theory that's where the fun was. Their formation didn't break so much as evaporate around her, men actively climbing over each other to be somewhere she wasn't. I almost felt for them. I'd fought dragons, demon commanders, a golden man with no weak points, and I would still think carefully before scheduling Astra. I did claim 1 kill that mattered. Kareem himself, commanding from the rear the way soft lords do, guarded by a few dozen elites. Astra and I hit the guard from both sides, and when the wall of bodies thinned, my halberd reached him before his excuses did. His remaining 4,500 men, lordless, surrounded, and thoroughly Astra-adjacent, chose employment. By dawn, the ledger read like a merger. 3,300 prisoners recruited or assigned to construction, my walls going up faster with the extra hands. The Kidian territory, my starting point, 1 week old and already fed by conquest, exactly like its big sister across the sea. I climbed the half-built wall as the sun came up and took inventory of my 2 lives. In the east, an empire of 1.5 million, run by the finest mind in the game, defended by mountains, wolves, falcons, a fleet with engines no one else possessed, and a reputation so heavy that its lord's ghost was scaring guilds out of the neighborhood. Enemies celebrating over an empty grave. A love story on pause, not on cancel. In the south, a fortress, a rising city, a gotcha team of 1 perfect administrator and 1 beautiful catastrophe. 3 billion strangers who had no idea what had just moved into the neighborhood, and a founding token's worth of proof that the walls between worlds have doors, if you're the right kind of key. And me on the wall between them, officially deceased, functionally everywhere, holding a broken godsword that wants its pieces back, and a mask the system itself can't see through. Grimgale and Comet think they killed me. Let them enjoy it. It's the last thing I ever planned to give them for free. My name is buried on 1 continent and brand new on another. My wife is conquering the East without me. And somewhere past the boundary walls, whoever built this game is watching all of us grow and sharpening something. Ask the Eastern continent who Xu Changfeng was, and they'll tell you he was the #1 player in the world, and that he died. Half right. I was never just a player, and I've never been more alive.